New body camera footage was just released, and it shows a bit of what we already knew in the Trump assassination attempt. These officers tried to climb on the roof. They saw a guy with a weapon, and then they freaked out. I'm just wondering why they didn't immediately say, get Trump off the stage, but, whatever. And in this, we hear the police say that they warned the Secret Service well in advance that the roof needed to be covered. And so, once again, another official piece of the story being dropped, which indicates... Look, man, I can't tell you, okay? We've got no official story. But let's just say, once again, the Secret Service didn't do their jobs. That's the easiest way to explain it. Some might say it was an accident. Some might say it was on purpose. But they did not do their jobs in every capacity, every step of the way, knowing the guy was there 3 hours in advance, 1 hour in advance, 26 minutes in advance, 10, 2, and even seeing a guy with a gun. Not once did the Secret Service actually do their jobs. They didn't attend the security briefing. They allowed a guy fly a drone overhead. And I will stress again, they knew he snuck in. I'm just kind of wondering what was going on. But we'll read the story, and we'll take a look at what went down with this warning. We also have major news. Elon Musk was going up against this large advertising cartel. Rumble also joined the lawsuit, and they won. Now, they didn't win the lawsuit. They just filed the lawsuit, and then this organization disbanded. So this responsible advertising group that was trying to block ads from X and Rumble no longer exists. So big news, big news. And then Donald Trump will be debating Kamala Harris. Sure. I guess that'll be fun, September 10th. And then we have another story about the FBI allowing in a man who was on the terror watch list. And it's a lot to do with the Trump assassination stuff. But I want to save the details for this one once we get into the show, because it's a bit more complicated. Before we get started, my friends, head over to mypillow.com/Tim. Use promo code Tim over at MyPillow, because Mike Lindell's got a special deal when you use that promo code. As you guys know who Mike Lindell is. He's a good dude. We're big fans. And he says, you asked, and MyPillow listened. They're finally bringing you the most requested offer ever. Their queen size premium MyPillow, only $19.98. MyPillow is made with patented adjustable fill. It adjusts your exact individual needs regardless of your sleep position. It helps keep your neck aligned and holds its shape all night long, so you get the best sleep of your life. That's not all. Get their 6-piece kitchen or bath towel sets, only $25. The brand new mattress topper as low as $69.98, and their famous MyPillow bed sheets for as low as $25, and so much more. Again, go to mypillow.com/Tim. Use promo code Tim. They also got a phone number for you. It's 1-800-925-9096. And this, is true. I certainly do use a MyPillow, and I love it. We actually had ordered 300 of them to make a MyPillow pit for the opening of our skate park. So we have tons of extra ones that we give away to our guests, because we're big fans. They're good pillows, but they got other stuff too. So check out MyPillow. Shout out to Mike Lindell for sponsoring the show. Also, head over to timcast.com. Click join us if you would like to support our show directly. With your help as a member, we can fight back against the fake news, and all of this is only possible because you guys are members. So if you think we do a good job in calling out the BS, reporting on the news, giving our opinions, then head over to timcast.com and click join us so that we may continue doing this. But you'll also get access to our uncensored members-only show coming up tonight at 10 p.m. You don't want to miss it. Not so family-friendly, but pretty fun and funny. Also, don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with all of your friends right now. Do it. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more is Kyle Seraphin.
How you doing, Tim?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm very well. It's a long day so far.
Yeah, who are you? What do you do?
So I'm an FBI agent recovering status. I got kicked out of the Bureau in 2022, and I, quote-unquote, resigned after a year of being unpaid in 2023. I'm a federal whistleblower. Got about 17 different whistleblowing activities, and I've been pushing the envelope against the Bureau, who don't tell us the truth, it turns out, quite a bit. And now I run a podcast, which is a very strong change from picking up dead bodies on an Indian reservation.
Oof.
But that's where I'm at now.
Well, all right. So we got a lot to talk about then. Thanks for hanging out. We got a lot of hanging out.
Hey, everybody. What's up? My name is Elad Eliyahu. I'm a field reporter here at Timcast News. Hannah Claire.
Hi, I'm Hannah Claire Brimla. I'm a writer for SCNR.com, a Scanner News. Check them out at Timcast News on the internet. Elad didn't comply with our dress code today, but we should get started anyways.
What was the dress code?
Elad told me he would text me and tell me what he was wearing so we could match like we did yesterday. But I guess our friendship is over.
He set you up.
Yeah, he did.
All right, here's the story from NBC News. Body cam video shows moments police encounter Trump's would-be assassin. Officer saying he warned Secret Service. This is that's the crazy bit about this. New body camera footage, video released Thursday by Butler Township from the day a man attempted to assassinate former President Trump shows the moment police encountered the shooter before he opened fire on the Pennsylvania crowd, and includes a police officer saying, He warned the Secret Service about the building vulnerability. In one of the videos, a Butler Township officer is being hoisted onto the roof of a building near the July 13th rally minutes before Trump was set to speak. The officer appears to peek his head over the roof before quickly dropping to the ground and running to a nearby police vehicle. The video shows the shooter cannot be seen in this angle of the body cam video, and there is no audio. So I'd like to I'm going to read this as well. Later in the video, the officer appears to confirm the encounter, saying, "F, this close, dude. He turned right around on me." Did you notice what they said in NBC News? They said minutes before Trump was set to speak. So hold on there a minute. This officer saw a guy on a rooftop with a gun who pointed at him before Trump even got on stage, and no one stopped Trump from getting on stage.
They may have the timeline wrong. It is NBC.
Fair point. Fair point. They are a fake news organization. Well, let's just say this. With NBC News' credibility on the line, they have reported that before Trump was set to speak, this officer encountered the man with the gun on the rooftop.
Here's why I say that's not true. Because if you watch the video, the first 2 minutes, like a lot of body cam, it's silent, right? So it's just the video, but there's no audio. You don't get to hear it. But as the audio goes live,
you hear Trump.
Trump is not speaking anymore. They're scrambling, and the shooter's already down. So in that 2 minute window, Trump was already speaking. He had to be. So I'm going to call this NBC.
Oh, NBC News, fake news. That's a bad fake news right there. That's serious.
That's just lazy editing. We don't hire editors anymore.
Yeah. Well, what I will say is they warned the Secret Service well in advance.
Yeah, that's true.
We know that. So the question then is, wow, as more and more information gets released, we are left with one of the most perplexing scenarios where the only official story we have is, for some reason, the Secret Service did not do their job. Mm-hmm. Now, some might argue that it was all just pure incompetence. But that seems strange to me that there could be so much of it. Now, don't get me wrong. I think the government's relatively incompetent in quite a bit. But when people are screaming, he's got a gun on the roof, it's a bit more than incompetence. When the Secret Service doesn't come to their come to the security briefing, when they know that this guy snuck in, when they see him 3 hours in advance with a rangefinder, 1 hour in advance, once again lurking around with a rangefinder, where did the gun come from? Where was he? How was he carrying it? How was he able to bypass all of this security? The idea that it was pure incompetence is, you know, you can't call it a conspiracy theory in the literal sense, but in the figurative sense, it's a conspiracy theory. And I'll clarify this. People like to say that if you believe the Earth is flat, you're a conspiracy theorist. There's no flat Earth conspiracy. Like, two guys didn't get together to conspire to make the world flat. So conspiracy.
I got people telling me that it's a lot of guys. All the world governments have conspired to flatten out the Earth.
Now, if you want to argue that NASA is lying about the Earth or whatever,
I heard that one.
There's your conspiracy theory. Yeah. But when you believe that, like, the Earth is hollow and there's dinosaurs living under it, that's just crazy. That's not a conspiracy. So what I'm saying is, if we want to use conspiracy theorist in the sense, the way the media does, that anybody who challenges official narratives or whatever, then if you believe this was incompetence, you're a conspiracy theorist. First and foremost, there is no official story. We don't know where he got the gun, how he got it up there. They're saying maybe it was collapsible or something. Maybe he got it from his dad. There's conflicting stories about whether he climbed an air conditioner or there was a ladder. We have not received an official narrative, an official story of who this guy is, what his motivation was, why he was there, how he bypassed security, why security wasn't doing their job, why Secret Service didn't pull Trump from the stage. None of it adds up. So the only thing you can do is guess.
That's what I hate. I also hate that there was so little accountability from the Secret Service. If you guys remember, I reference this all the time, but Kim Cheadle didn't do an official press conference. She didn't make a formal statement. She did an ABC interview in which she was
working on the sloped roof situation. She had to work out whether that was going to poll well.
Well, she said, you know, the buck stops with me and the Secret Service is in charge. But actually, local police was in charge of that video. I mean, she tried to throw them under the bus immediately and shift the narrative away from her while also simultaneously trying to say, I'm the head of this organization and the buck stops with me. I think, obviously, it's intentional that we have no information here. And I think that is just going to further harm American public trust, not just in the institutions, but also in other people.
This cop in the body camera footage even says, how the hell could you lose a guy walking over here? He says he told the Secret Service 4 days in advance to post someone up there. They didn't do it. They didn't do it. So this goes back even before the rally. Secret Service was informed they needed a guy on the roof. Didn't do it. They were supposed to have a security briefing. Didn't go. They saw the guy sneak in, didn't care. 3 hours in advance, spotted a guy with a rangefinder. So what? An hour? So what? 26 minutes? So what? 10 minutes? So what? At 2 minutes, they're screaming he's got a gun. So what? In this video, the guy's saying that, where's the other quote? He's saying, let me read this quotes. In the video, he jumps down and he says, F this. He then runs to his radio. Before you MFer came out here, I put my head up like an effing idiot by myself, dude. I was calling out, bro, on top of the roof. Bro, were you on the same frequency? The SWAT team member said he was pissed that he couldn't find him. So you have a police officer. They say in another clip released Thursday, an unidentified Butler Township officer said about 10 minutes after Trump was shot that he told the Secret Service about the building's vulnerability days before the rally. So this guy sees the guy on the roof and yells on the radio, they don't pull Trump off the stage. So now not only do we have regular people screaming he's on the roof, he's got a gun, and Secret Service does nothing. You've got a cop saying he was calling on the radio, he's on the roof, bro, on the roof. They did nothing. I'm sorry, the only thing I can say is I don't intend to go out and buy a Mega Millions ticket right now because the amount of incompetency for it to be an accident would be the stars aligning perfectly. And I might as well just go win $1 billion. No, I think it was intentional because you got to look at the simple solution. Did every accident in the world happen? Did every person stationed here at the Secret Service just have like an IQ of 70? Or were they intentionally ignoring what was going on?
I'm going to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but I think there were just so many levels of incompetencies that overlapped with one another. Tim mentioned a few. It was this poor communication between the local law enforcement team in Butler and the Secret Service, not knowing who was going to secure the roof of this building.
What do you mean? The cops said they warned Secret Service to do it. What do you mean there's miscommunication? Well, why are you making that up?
No, the miscommunication was between the Secret Service who told the local PD that they should cover the roof, right?
A police officer said 4 days before he instructed the Secret Service to station guys on that roof. That's the story we have right now. We can assume he's lying or we can assume it's the truth. I think the safe bet we can make right now is this is body camera footage from that day, right when they saw the shooter, before he took the shot. The guy is saying, I told them 4 days ago. So I don't care about anything Kim Cheel said after the fact. This is a cop saying they were told to get a guy on the roof. Why didn't they do it?
Well, you see some of why.
There's no poor communication.
You actually do see some of why. And there actually is poor communication in that video. So I'll break this down. I've worked with Secret Service. I was at Trump's inauguration in 2017. I've been in plainclothes. I've worked with Uniform Division in plainclothes and also when they're in uniform. So I've been at multiple State of the Unions. We've done a bunch of operations. My team was surveillance. So we would be on the ground, walking around. The thing that people thought that was going on January 6th or what would be the right thing for them to do, which is to basically look for people that are dropping backpacks behind a tree and leaving explosives. We would do the thing like trying to protect First Amendment civil liberties. What I saw in that clip, which I think is very salient. Number one, the guy goes up, right? He puts his head over the top of the edge. He looks over, supposedly sees the gunman. I'll believe that. The body cam doesn't show it, but there's no reason to think otherwise. Falls back down. What does he do? He sprints back to his patrol cruiser and he gets a rifle. And he's so rattled that he's not even able to get the magazine into the rifle. I watched this a couple of times, but he's totally rattled. But here's the thing. He ran from the one place where he knew where the guy was, and he went to go get a rifle, which is a thing, means that he was not paying attention. He could have just laid there and covered the roof and then been there vectoring in a SWAT team. That would be a totally heads-up move. That didn't happen. And what we've also heard is that the Secret Service, and this is the most probable thing that I've ever heard, didn't use the local PD's radios. When you work on a federal system, especially if you're traveling, because I used to do this for a living, I've been to 20 different field offices working out of other places. We never got local patrol radios. Why? It's the dumbest reason you can imagine, Tim. It's because nobody wants to take responsibility for the radio and then give it back to the other guy. So they don't take the radio. I've seen the least competency when it comes to functioning on a radio. So the comm situation, it makes sense that they're calling in, they're screaming it across the TAC channel that's supposed to be going to Secret Service, and at best it's going into a relay station in a trailer somewhere and not getting out to those agents. So the delayed response, it does make sense in that case. I also agree with you that the number of screw-ups that have to happen defy credulity at every single level because there are so many of them. The advanced team has to screw up. The guy on the day decides, I'm going to go take a pee. It's too hot here on the roof. I might as well sit inside. I'm going to leave this thing open. The kid somehow gets a rifle up there. He's flying the drone. There's a million screw-ups there.
How did we get from they spotted him with a rangefinder and then he had a gun?
Yeah, and like he had a backpack. And then here's the other thing. So the deputy assistant director
dismantled and put the weapon together on the roof. Is that?
Well, you could do that. That's not that hard. So
no, I know. I'm just saying they haven't given us an official story.
The story that we heard from Paul Abate, who's the deputy director of the FBI. So he's the number 2. First of all, Chris Wray came in and said one thing, and he was trying to push this like collapsible stock thing. And you can tell that Chris Wray doesn't know anything about guns because he talks about. He's like, I don't know the difference between a rate of a semi-automatic and a full.
Stock moves only like 4 inches, doesn't it?
Correct. Now the possibility is that he's got something like a law tactable folding adapter, so you can actually fold that sucker down, and then you can actually knock off 12 inches. But are you telling me that a kid took a 16-inch barrel plus the entire upper, which is still, it's 24 inches, it's 28 inches long, and that was concealable? I've seen one guy. I followed one terrorist subject in my 3 years of doing that for full time. I followed one terrorist subject who could carry an AR-15, and he was
How did he do it?
He was 6'8" and 350 pounds, so he looked like a WWE superhero, and he could put it underneath the jacket and not look crazy. That's the only person I've ever seen do that. You're not, and that kid was skinny, right? Crooks.
Yeah, there's.
He's not concealing an AR-15 under any certain, not even in a backpack.
Let's play some of this footage. We have it here from NBC.
This is the video I'm talking about, showing a Butler Township, Pennsylvania police officer climbing up on the roof before immediately dropping back down, potentially because there was concern that the shooter could turn his rifle on the officer. There's no audio from that moment, but some video later captures the officer's immediate reaction to what he saw. Listen to this.
This close, bro. Dude, he turned around on me. Seriously, he was right where you picked me up, bro. He was on that left side.
And remember, the suspect, the shooter, was able to get several shots off in the moments after that officer climbed the roof, hurting the former president and killing a bystander.
Here's what I think too.
FBI said 8, by the way. So
planned incompetence would be intentionally setting it up so that local law enforcement and Secret Service can't communicate. So if the cops find something, the Secret Service doesn't respond. Mm-hmm. It could be instructing Secret Service they don't need to attend the morning security briefing. It could be intentionally not placing someone on that roof. However, the question that remains, this guy, how was he allowed in every step of the way to bypass security? And this could all be explained by a single individual at a logistical level. You get a Secret Service guy calling the hey, I see a weird guy with a rangefinder. And then the boss goes, nah, we're taking care of that. You're good. They go, okay. And then they disregard. You get a team of people and you say, here's how we're securing the event. Don't worry, we'll give you your assignments. And then you intentionally don't assign someone to the roof. All the other guys, all they know is, hey, I'm covering this roof, I'm covering that roof. They assume someone must be doing the other job. It still would imply someone in an official capacity was pulling the strings to make the incompetence happen.
Yeah, or they were lazy. And so there's this thing my buddies and I talk about, the myth of competence. Everybody likes to imagine that there's just this like high-speed crew of people. It's so often not that. Here's some of the fog of war stuff that people have to put in, because some of the incompetency can be explained even though it's horrific. We saw some of it in that body cam footage, which they didn't show, which is the guys running. They actually put a couple of pallets up on a little overhang. And so they boosted a couple of SWAT guys up. They're all wearing multicam. Then they've got pallets and they're trying to get to the next tier of the roof and they're screaming for a ladder and all these things are just, they get mixed up in that fog of war. The other thing that I can see happening is, apparently there were 2 sniper teams that were up there that were Secret Service. One was sort of like a B team, if you will, or a C team, and they're using bolt action Remington 700s. So that's not what the A team used. The A team uses like an SR-25, like a Knight's Armament, like higher end weapon system. And so they have semi-automatic capabilities and they can shoot that far out with a 308. So the problem is, what I saw in the video, everyone thought it was like one dude who was taking the shot, and they're like, look, there he is taking the kill shot or whatever, and they show the rifle moving. He breaks contact with the glass and all this other kind of stuff, and that poor guy is probably going to get lambasted about this forever. But it looks like he broke contact because he flinched, because he wasn't prepared. He saw shots coming in, and he thought it was coming at him.
Right.
That was the nearest sniper. The further snipers are the ones that took the shot. I can imagine that you're sitting there looking at a roof where someone is supposed to be, because there was someone supposed to be there for all the things that we've heard. They weren't there, but there was supposed to be someone. And imagine that you're a cop or you're a Secret Service uniform division guy, and you're on the gun, and you pan over, and there's a dude in a place where a dude is supposed to be, and the dude has a gun, and there's supposed to be a guy with a gun there. But he's wearing shorts, and he's got long hair and weird glasses, and you're like, is that Mike? Is that like, who the hell is that?
Right.
And then you don't have comms with whoever the local sniper team that's supposed to be putting the guy up there or whatever it looks like. And you have that moment of hesitation, and that guy at the same time has the same problem of the cop coming up. There can be a carnival of errors, like the symphony of things that line up. I do agree that there is some incompetence, whether it's intentional or just absolutely reckless. I don't want to speculate on it yet, but I will tell you this. The single worst trainee that any of you can imagine, just get on your imagination hats and think of the worst person that you would ever put through the FBI Academy. She was in my class at Quantico. She was under 5 feet tall. And nothing against short women. My wife is under 5 feet tall. But like this woman was like wrestling with a toddler. She failed every single academic exercise. There were things that were non-failable. They let her go to the last 4 weeks, and she was removed from the academy for failing to do everything, okay? Doing crazy stuff and saying crazy things. They removed her. She went back up to the FBI's field office in New York. Do you know what she does now?
Secret Service.
Correct. She was sent to FLETC, and they were able to rehire her. So they're hiring some people that have absolutely no business in being there, and we saw some.
And I will say this, too. I know somebody who's a very smart person, but they have no experience with guns. And we went to a range, and I would make the assumption, based on just understanding the mechanisms of a gun by looking at it, that a reasonably smart person would not do this.
Oh, she got the slide?
And then... And it was actually scary because
it's a good way to get hurt.
She put her hand over the gun like this and held for about a second, 2 seconds, and then that's when I noticed and screamed, and then she took her hands pointed down, and I was like, holy crap.
So this gal that we're talking about, she didn't hold on to a shotgun while sending buckshot
so
down. It just went up in the air. And, you know, I almost watched one of my buddies catch buckshot in the side of the head because they're standing on a common firing line. That assumes that you're going to be pointing in a safe direction, not letting it go like this. It took her 15 minutes to do a 2-minute driving course. So these kind of people, if you're going to take them in, and it just turns out that she was a military veteran, even though she was the weakest one I've ever seen, she was a Hispanic female. So you have 3 things that they are checking in these boxes. And if you are going for these types of what we would call diversity hires or whatever you want to call it, when that person is getting hired on and they're making every excuse, there is more flexibility for screw-ups than you would ever imagine. It does defy credulity, but still, they're out there.
I realize that some people are just listening and didn't explain. What I was describing is holding the gun by putting your left hand over where the slide is, and if you pull the trigger, that's going to... Well, it's probably going to rip your thumb back, break it, or...
Yeah, a lot of people have what they call slide bite, so they get their hand too high up on it, and competitive shooters get it, but if you're screwing it up, then yeah, you lose pieces of skin. Well,
I think if you put your hand over the slide and pull the trigger...
you might break a finger, or
break your thumb or something.
Metacarpals or something.
But this is just from people who don't have the experience. Now, if these are the kind of people who are going to be brought in, and they're just standing around...
30% of my class when I went through in 2016 had never held a firearm before. Now, I'm 35 at the time, so I'm a little bit older, but like I feel like if you sign up to be an FBI agent, you maybe have gone to a range once just to check it out.
I do believe that this country is facing a managerial crisis, and it has a large component is COVID, with all the mass retirements that happened. A lot of people who weren't prepared to take the next step or the next role, they shouldn't be there. What is this called? Is it the Peter principle? Mm-hmm. That when people get promoted into position,
there's a mean way of saying it, but essentially you're promoted to the level of your incompetence.
Right. You're really good in the mailroom, so you get a promotion to,
look, they do this in
other office you can't handle.
This is the thing that happens in law enforcement in general. Nobody can tell me that the best patrol officer on the street, that is the best at stopping drunk drivers and handles people efficiently and drives safely, is also going to be the best detective. There's probably some overlap in that skill set. But just because you did a great job on the street on patrol does not mean that you're great investigators, and vice versa. There are some investigators that are brilliant, but they should never leave the office because they're morons when they go talk to people. And I work with those folks. It's like, don't let them talk to human beings. They're weird.
So I'll just say, I think the story that they've given us, the only thing I'm willing to accept with this story is that the details they give us through the media are wrong because the media lies all the time.
There's more. So when we get to the story with the FBI,
and we're going to pull that up right now.
There's some things in there that I'm going to show you that overlap, I think.
So I'm saying, as of right now, based on the stories we've gotten from the press and the body camera footage, I do not believe it is realistic or reasonable to conclude this was incompetence. But let's jump to the story from the Post Millennial, which should remove all doubt. FBI allowed suspect arrested for plot to assassinate Trump into U.S. despite being on terror watch list. Report. Okay, there you go. So for all of those of you out there who are wondering about what happened on July 13th, let me read the headline for you again. FBI allowed suspect arrested for plot to assassinate Trump into the U.S. despite being on terror watch list.
This is a much bigger story, and it tells of a much bigger problem that goes back at least 20, maybe 25 years. If you give me a little bit of leeway, I'll explain why these things lead me to think what went on with Thomas Crooks is a little bit more dangerous than what they're saying.
Did they bring him in to arrest him, or how long did they allow him?
3 months is what it sounds like. They allowed him in for months. Here's the thing. His visa was sponsored by the FBI field office in Dallas, from whatever we can read here. So people have to understand.
He's on the terror watch list, and the FBI brought him in.
Allowed him in.
But they sponsored his visa.
I'm going to tell you why. And it's dumber than it makes any sense. I was talking to a guy who's in one of the conservative caucuses, like in a chief of staff position. He's like, how does this work? And I go, when the FBI charts their progress, they are looking for a thing that are called stats. This is something that all law enforcement, this is like quotas, if you will. And so we need to have stats that say, I have X number of cases in this field, and I have X number of arrests in this type of category. We're going after MS-13. We're going after organized crime, blah, blah, blah. We're doing these counterintelligence investigations. They have a thing that's called a disruption, which means the plot basically got foiled. And they have a thing that's called a dismantlement, which means that this network was taken apart. And you get more points for a dismantlement than you do for a disruption. If my memory serves, it may be backwards, but I think it's that. So the thing is these guys are literally going for gold stars on a board. And you think, okay, well, would they sacrifice public safety to do this? If they thought they can get away with it safely, they will. And the second thing is the oldest reason that's ever existed. It's greed. The senior executive service in all federal governments, but definitely in the FBI that I was able to experience, they get paid a 5-figure bonus. It's like between $30,000 and $50,000, maybe $60,000 if they hit all their metrics. So they are incentivized to get arrests in certain categories. They're incentivized to do these sort of things. And the other thing that we know, because we had some whistleblowers come to me and my guys, and so I represent a number of different whistleblowers in the FBI. They came out and said, the FBI went so hard on January 6th that they overdid the number of hours that they're allowed to assign to domestic terrorism because they have to spread themselves to international terrorism and domestic terrorism. They massively overdid it for DT, which is the abbreviation.
Donald Trump?
That's right. Same thing. And when they went after these DT cases, they did it so badly that they sent out section chiefs from headquarters to all the field offices regionally and said, listen, we need you to go through all of your domestic terrorism cases and find connections to international terrorism so we can recategorize your hours. Imagine like an attorney bills hours. The FBI assigns the work of an agent against certain types of categories of cases. So they had too many what are called 266 cases. Those are the domestic terror. They needed more 415 cases. And in order to do that, they were like, hey, did you find a dude who is a white supremacist, but he was in a chat room somewhere that later on an Al-Qaeda guy went into, because we can tie them together and make this a 415 instead of a 266. It's the dumbest thing possible. But when you understand we're talking about bureaucracy here, here's the scariest part for me. This has been going on for 20 years. There's a guy named Trevor Aronson who I always reference. He works for The Intercept, so that's not a right-wing source, right? And he's not a right-leaning
far
dude.
left.
He's a reasonable liberal. And he basically has called out the fact that the FBI has been doing this at least since 2006. What they do is they go find people that are otherwise inclined to do dumb things. And they usually find them online and they say, hey, you want to do dumb and violent things? We want to help you do that too. And so an undercover or a CHS will go and meet with that person. They will enable their best ideas. They will fund it and they will push them along and to the point where they're ready to go do it. And then it's like, hey, we're going to give you the gun. And the minute they touch the gun, bam, it's flashbangs at your feet. It's SWAT team and you're done and you're in cuffs. And now you're facing 20 to life for material support of terrorism. The craziest piece that I've been able to kind of speculate on a Thomas Crooks. Imagine you're Thomas Crooks. You're a 20-year-old. You're hanging out online. You're a skinny dude. That's where your life is. We don't know enough about his internet persona, right? But there has to be some because of his age and the way that he grew up. That guy, he goes out and meets, let's say, an undercover or a CHS for the FBI. And they start saying, hey, you're really pissed off at Republicans or politicians or whatever. You want to go do something terroristic. I want to help you. I want to help you. How much money you got? I can help you. I can help you get the rifle. I can help you get all the right stuff. I got a guy. I got a friend. Oh, you only have $800. It turns out for you today, $799, my friend, we will hook you up. And that guy decides, you know what? I'm just going to take my dad's rifle. I don't need to wait for this guy. And maybe he listens to some of the people out there talking, saying, the people that are telling you to do violent stuff are probably feds, so you'll get caught.
Right.
You know it's a death mission to go shoot at a former president. You're not going to walk away from
Current front runner.
Right. You're not going to walk away from that experience. You have to assume that's a one-way sort of kamikaze mission.
Yeah.
But so real quick, you're saying there's a possibility this Crooks guy, they were doing what the FBI does, where they set somebody up, but then he breaks off halfway and goes rogue.
How do you assume that you're going to control this person?
Right.
Only because you've always controlled people? The story is always the same. Like when you get complacent, and you get lazy in the type of work you do. For example, if you go after pedophiles, what you'll find is that basically 90+% of them are going to turn themselves in when confronted because they're not violent people, at least not to grown-ups, and certainly not to grown-ups like men with guns who have beards. But there's a small percentage of them that will get violent. And the majority of them will be violent to themselves. They will commit suicide. And that's just a thing that they do. That's just the stats. But a very, very small percent of them, especially if you learn the lesson that most of them will surrender, the rest of them will commit suicide, maybe 1% of that small little group is going to get violent and decide it's a one-way mission, and they'll shoot at you. The FBI learned that mission, or that sort of lesson in 2020 when they had 2 agents that were shot and a couple others that were, 2 were killed and a couple were shot, going after a guy that was doing child pornography. So it's a real thing that if you get complacent and you do the same thing over and over again, you think that you have control over your guy. And imagine that one of them squirts out. That's what scares me about this guy from Pakistan who was supposedly in the employment of Iran. The FBI let him in, and then they supposedly had him under 24/7 surveillance for like 3 months. And here's the thing. I did that for a living. I used to fly around the country and watch people. We would do it 8 hours a day, 3 different shifts. And I've seen legit, credible terrorist sources who were buying guns and doing training and doing scary stuff that you're like, oh, this guy should really be watched. And I've seen the exact field office that this was working out of, the New York field office, phone it in. They have literally met at a pizza parlor in a state that I'm not going to say, where they hung out together and didn't follow the terrorist subject, even though that I knew the terrorist subject was running around because we had a poll cam on their house.
So I wonder how many instances there are then where someone will commit a murder or a crime and it was the FBI's fault, but they just wash their hands, get rid of the evidence.
Are you going to claim it? I mean, here's the thing.
Say, don't look at me.
It's in a source room, and this is the problem with the transparency issues that we have with the Bureau. And it's the issue that my buddies and I bring up all the time. That's why we're not really comfortable with them doing the investigation of the Trump shooting. It's not that they don't have the competency. It's that they don't feel that they're responsible to you and me and any other taxpayer. They're out there going, listen, this is a federal matter. We don't answer to individual places. Unlike your local, you could vote out a sheriff. Mm-hmm. You can probably vote out your town council and get a different.
The director of the FBI.
You don't vote out the director of the FBI. You definitely don't get rid of the deputy director, who's the number 2. That's really the power behind the throne. There's a direct line between Chris Wray and Paul Abate. Mm-hmm. And Paul Abate is, he's a woke dude. Like I don't want to speculate things, but I've heard significant reasonable rumors that he got one of his employees pregnant. He was into BLM stuff. He had, women whispering in his ear all the way through. They made apologies for what happened in 2020 when they were like kneeling for BLM. That was in my field office. I knew the agents that did that. And they all got excused because there is that at the top of the FBI. And he said at one point, if you're not interested in going after people for January 6th, you need to find a new job.
So one individual said Hanlon's razor. And I'm just like, Hanlon's razor, for those who don't know, is never attribute to malice that which can be explained by incompetence. Right. Sorry, this can't be explained by incompetence.
Some of it can.
Yeah,
The question is where is that line, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, you were about to say something.
I was going to ask if you can talk more about how the quotas are set. Like, is this set by Congress through budget requirements, or is it just, whoever's at the top of the totem pole is like, I think we need to have this many domestic terrorism cases?
Do you know what the self-licking ice cream cone is?
Is that thing from Texas with that drag show and kids?
No, this is what government does. Like there's a tongue and there's an ice cream cone, and they're on the same thing. So the tongue licks the ice cream, and the ice cream, is there to be licked by the tongue. The government sets its own situation up. It's the reason why guys like me, we're not adjudicated to be whistleblowers, and it's because the government investigated the government and found that the government did nothing wrong.
Which part of the government?
The FBI determines through a big process called IPM, they decide how many cases they expect to see. And they might as well be throwing darts at a board because there's no way to guess. What they should say is, we want to make sure that these number of probabilities are handled, and we're going to flex resources where they need to go. Instead, what they say is, we had 800 domestic terrorism cases last year. We're going to have 950, and we're going to divvy them up to the 56 field offices, and they're all going to have a piece of it. And when they hit their number, they get a gold star in that category. And if they don't do it, they get a green, and then a yellow, and then a red. And if you can get green and gold across the board, your bonus is made, so the head of the field office gets that bonus. Mm-hmm. So everybody down the chain is incentivized to do it, because if you're a field agent like I was, like I never cared about this kind of stuff. I think it's dumb. But you see that your boss comes to you and is like, hey, we need to open up these cases. They made us keep cases open that we were like, why am I keeping this open? They're like, you need to do something for your job. And I'm like, shouldn't I do the cases that matter? No, you should do the cases that you have. And that is a very different mindset than what people assume.
I just thought of something. I have a question. The Gretchen Whitmer case, right?
Set up.
So you had a bunch of derpy guys had no idea what's going on, and then you get these informants, and FBI agents were actually directing what these guys were doing. Am I correct in that? I just want to. It's been a while.
Yeah, agents and undercovers. And sources rather.
Right. So what would happen if there's 16 guys, 12 of them are either informants or a couple of them are actual agents, mm-hmm. and they're talking about and doing all this stuff, and then one of the guys who's the marks records what they're saying, goes to the press and says the FBI is planning to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer. I have proof, and gives them the recordings and the names of the guys. It's literally an FBI agent plotting the kidnapping of Gretchen Whitmer. Sure. What would happen if the New York Times came out and said, we've uncovered a plot by of FBI agents to kidnap a politician? They, when
That's all about target selection.
what I mean is when the event is allowed to continue to some point, the FBI then goes, "Aha, you're under arrest." But they were the ones who were actually doing the plot. If the plot was interrupted midway through by journalists, real ones, or by some kind of whistleblower who uploads the video footage and says, this guy's an FBI agent and he wants to kidnap Whitmer, how do they get out of that? No, we were trying to set them up.
Here's the funniest thing, because you had all these people that were really, really upset about Donald Trump getting immunity for official acts. There's a thing that's referred to as otherwise illegal activity. Okay? Otherwise illegal activity is a sign-off that is delegated from the president down to the attorney general, down to the United States attorney's office in whatever area you're in, and then your assistant United States attorney, which is your prosecutor, your line prosecutor for the federal government, says, yes, you can sell drugs. You can be an undercover, because you can't sell drugs to somebody.
But you're saying someone at the highest level of the FBI signed off on an agent.
It doesn't have to go. It gets delegated all the way down. But that's where the chain of custody goes through.
So what I'm saying is,
it's delegated authority.
if videos appeared online showing actual FBI agents talking about how they wanted to kidnap Whitmer, how does that resolve in the public? Is the FBI going to come out and say, actually, this is a sting operation, don't worry about it? See, the thing is...
Probably.
Yes, but then people are going to be like, holy crap, the FBI was caught actually trying to commit crimes.
You can read a whole book
then
of
we
these
get
crimes.
to see their dirty work. Really,
You can
have journalists there who'd be able to uncover their methods and then judge if it's ethical or not. I guess
you can read their methods right now. The book is called The Terror Factory. It's in its 10th anniversary right now. My buddies told me this was required reading to be on the surveillance team I was on, so that we knew that when they hit the panic button and said, "We got a terrorist," like Janine in the Ghostbusters, we got one. You'd get the call and you'd be like, oh, "Okay, let's see what it really is." And you get there and you're like, "Another one of these." They would act like it was the biggest case ever, and in reality, it's always the same. Some poor sap who's down on his luck. He's either mentally or physically or emotionally handicapped, has no other friends. The only friend he has is either a confidential human source or an FBI undercover, and they don't want to let their friend down. That's the only friend they got. And their friend's talking them to do with terrorism, gets them sworn into ISIS. I mean, we had undercovers that would go in and swear in to Al-Qaeda, swear allegiance to ISIS, and they'd be like, "I'm 100% in, let's go do this." And the second the guy does the thing, like put money down on the table to buy fill-in-the-blank gun or explosives or take your pick, it's bam, they're captured, and then they go and then they face those charges. Here's a really wild one, because we actually worked on this in Tampa. And this will hurt people's feelings, because this is actually there's no winner in this. There was a guy who was legitimately psychotic, and the agents who were running the case said that he was psychotic to me as I was doing that work. They were like, "Yep, he hasn't slept in months. He wakes himself up every 45 minutes. He prays the Quran until he cries, and he is nuts. He gets in his car. He drives 110 miles an hour. He drives by the Pulse nightclub, which was like an hour and 30 minutes away, because he's really excited about Omar Mateen. He's totally crazy." They also said, "You're probably not going to be able to take him alive." And that was the first time I've ever heard anyone say that. They're like, "You're probably going to have to kill this guy." And I'm like, "Look, we're capable of doing that." But I've never heard someone say that. By the way, he went in like a baby, like all of them do when you throw a flashbang at their feet. He was arrested without incident. The crazy thing is, his sister actually turned him to the FBI and said, "There's something wrong with my brother. He's doing something really dangerous." This is in Florida, in Tampa, so they have the Baker Act there. But everybody has these kind of like potential for putting people into a 72-hour cycle. Yeah. So they brought it to the FBI. They made her what they call a cooperating witness. Okay. And two members of the family basically were trying to help this guy get out of this trouble. Instead, the FBI set him up, bought an eBay account for $25,000, tried to sell him guns through eBay. They took over that account from the seller and then started like trying to send him guns.
This is after the sister has come to them and said, like,
correct,
he has serious issues.
Correct. And then they ended up getting the guy into custody by getting him to buy like a suppressed Glock and a baby AK or whatever he was calling it. It's like a Draco or something. And at the end of the day, he does all this stuff. He gets arrested, no problem. His sister felt so betrayed that less than a week after her brother was arrested, she went to the police station wearing her full Islamic garb. It was like a full, head to toe, with a 10-inch butcher knife underneath her vestments. And when a cop came out, because she was sobbing, and said, "Ma'am, is there something wrong? Can I help you?" She took a stab at the guy, cut him in the arm, and he drew down and he killed her on camera. And you guys can go find the footage.
That wasn't the right thing to do.
Well, that's what had to happen, because she drew a knife. He didn't know anything about her.
I'm saying the woman.
Well, she made a terrible decision.
Right. You don't do that.
But imagine that you went to the federal government and you're like, "Look, I'm going to try to help." And you're like, my brother's got these problems. By the way, the kid has a really sad story too. He was 15 years old and he was put into a terrorist internment camp in Saudi Arabia and tortured for like 3 or 4 years before he was released back in the United States. So he's broken and he needed mental help. There's no doubt about it. But the fact is the sister who turned to cooperate with the federal government tried to stab a cop. She got killed. So everybody loses.
Yeah.
And the federal government gets their prosecution. Everybody got their stats. The dude's in jail for 20 to life. I actually offered to the defense attorneys to go down there and testify in that case with what I knew. I'm sure the FBI would have tried to block that. I don't know how that would work, but like,
Can I ask you a question?
Disgusting.
How does the FBI decide what is?
We should jump to this next story.
Okay.
So this is big news from CNBC. Advertising group suspends brand safety net after Elon Musk's antitrust lawsuit. This is huge.
It is.
This is GARM. GARM started in 2019 as part of in part to help advertisers avoid having their promotions show up alongside content they deemed harmful. The Global Advertising Association said it is suspending the operations of a unit focused on brand safety 2 days after Elon Musk's company X sued the group, alleging it organized an illegal ad boycott. The World Federation of Advertisers, WFA, confirmed Thursday that it would halt its nonprofit initiative. This is basically what leftist activists do to control narrative and manipulate people. Well, Rumble also joined the lawsuit, and now it has been dismantled. With Elon Musk buying X, they cannot contend with such a massive multi-billion-dollar platform filing these lawsuits. So, look, we can thank Elon for buying Twitter, turning it into X, bringing free speech back to certain degrees. There's certain things that are still bad on the platform, but I think Musk's doing a really great job. And then there's more than just your right to speak on the platform and getting your account back. For instance, Carl Benjamin back on the platform after Elon Musk bought it. Now, at the global stage, these advertiser boycotts and this woke machine is failing. Rumble joins in. More companies are now able to push back. They say ex-CEO Linda Yaccarino said in a post on X, "This is an important acknowledgement and a necessary step in the right direction. I am hopeful that it means ecosystem-wide reform is coming." So, huge news.
This is also a loss for the WEF. Because they were affiliated with GARM as well. It was one of their co-projects.
The ad boycotts, the adpocalypse, is how they suppress voices they don't like. They try to remove your ads. They did this to Tucker Carlson. He had something like 16 advertisers, and then they started attacking his advertisers. People started getting scared of the activists and pulling out. Now the tide is turning, and the advertisers are this is not even advertisers. These are activist organizations. Advertisers don't care. They want to sell products.
This is a cartel. That's what this is. And the cartel is doing, and they're doing a protection racket, right? It's a shakedown. They go and they say, hey, we're willing to bring all of our advertisers who have all signed on to these rules. And if you are going to play ball with us, then we'll bring our advertisers. But otherwise, we'll tell all the people that signed on that they're not going to be allowed because they've gone into binding agreements under this. And now it's dismantled. So that's good news. Doesn't mean it's going to fix the problem overnight, though. There's still going to be people that are demonetized. There's still going to be platforms that are going to struggle. As long as they can hold out long enough, then maybe these people come back. But
I think that's the problem, though. For X, there's a lot of cash flow and you have the attention. But if you're a smaller organization that's trying to start out, having a coalition of people saying we're going to block advertising from your platform is, completely detrimental. In fact, it could be fatal to your business.
And they've named specific people too. They went after Loud with Crowder.
We actually have this story. This is from today as well. Mm-hmm. MAGA supporters on X call for Dunkin' Donuts boycott. Go woke, go broke. Dunkin' Donuts told Rumble, according to the story. They said, to be honest, I would. I'm assuming they're emailing Chris. I would be opposed to showing up on the current version of the platform. The right-wing culture on the site is too polarizing from a brand suitability standpoint. Redacted. But we are open to continuing discussion as the site evolves. I am sorry to share that because I want to help. That's a lie.
That's a shakedown.
Rumble has a lot of right-wing podcasts on it. That doesn't mean much. YouTube, and there's a bunch of platforms that are far left. Rumble has Street League skateboarding. They've got a bunch of skateboard stuff. So how about this? Dunkin' Donuts says, if our ads only appear on your skate and sports and gaming stuff, we're cool. We don't want to be on the political stuff. That's totally normal. Instead, they were like, we won't advertise with you at all for this. So now people are calling for a boycott. But here's what's interesting. Apparently, this was specifically about Louder with Crowder. They say, let me read. They say, Rumble hosts a variety of controversial right-wing figures, blah, 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 controversial. Pavlovsky claimed Duncan specifically wanted Rumble to drop right-wing political commentator Steve Crowder. It's Steven Crowder. It's not Ruble, it's Rumble, and it's Pavlovsky.
You know what the
Daily
sad
Mail
thing
is
is?
really dedicated to this story.
Yeah, no more, again, editor problems. The thing that's really sad is whenever you have, if you run an online business, you can opt out of advertisers that are going to bring you. Like ad agencies will come to you and say, hey, we want to advertise on your podcast, on your program, whatever it is. And you'll say, okay, cool. Listen, I don't do metal sponsors. I don't do political advertisements. I'm not interested in sports or gambling stuff, online gambling. You can actually tell them, hey, these are the things I don't want to hear ads from, and vice versa. The advertisers can say, I'm not interested in political podcasts. I'm only interested in girls in bikinis playing video games. And like, there's a ton of that on Rumble. So you can pick what it is that you want to go and advertise on. Like you said, you can be very selective about how these ads run. So this is nonsensical. It's a shakedown.
I do think it's really funny that the reason Rumble reached out to Dunkin' Donuts is because the sponsor reads and ads on Rumble that they oversample coffee. And it's because coffee is an easy product for people to sell for merch for their brand or whatever. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people, you name a brand, they've started selling coffee. It's an easy product to sell. So if you've got
it's
a
consumable,
podcast,
it's every day.
Everybody loves coffee.
Yep.
The reason we launched coffee is partially why we have Casper is partially because coffee is easy and everybody loves coffee, but it's also because we want physical location. So the actual intent was we bought a building first. We were trying to open up a coffee shop. It's taken a year and a half. Permits are moving forward. We're really excited about this. And so we're like, we'll launch the website and sell the coffee first. That way we're sponsoring ourselves. Mm-hmm. This is what most people do. So Chris is like, people on this website sell a lot of coffee. Let's go to Dunkin' and see if they want to advertise here, because everybody who's like watching these shows, they buy a lot of coffee. It's over indexing. And Dunkin' was like, nah, we don't want to go where people buy coffee, which makes no sense.
Do you know who I think about when I think about like right-wing people that drink coffee? I think about cops who spend an awful lot of time in Dunkin' Donuts because it's what's open when you're working late hours.
Oh, dude, if cops start boycotting Dunkin'.
You're talking about 1 million people that are sworn officers in this country. A huge chunk of them lean, at least they lean generally conservative because they care about law and order. And they also sort of lean towards liberty, you hope. There's some fascists out there, obviously, but mostly these people want to see people be able to be free. That's what their hand in the air says when they sign on. So yeah, I'd like to see 1 million cops. And they did this to Starbucks a little bit, and so the alternative was Dunkin'. If Dunkin' wants to get on that bandwagon,
well,
there's other places.
Catcherd says, I'm calling on everyone to Bud Light Dunkin' Donuts. Seriously, companies like Dunkin' Donuts think they can bully us. Mm-hmm. And what I'm asking you tonight is to stick together and turn Dunkin' Donuts into Bud Light. If you have any fight left in you, let's trend boycott Dunkin' Donuts. So, I mean, this isn't part of the advertising cartel. It's just, this is what the companies do. Now, here's what I love. Ryan Long nailed this in one of his comedy bits. And I want to see if I can, let me see if I can pull this one up. I'm not sure exactly what he titled the video. But it's a, let's see, left-wing, here we go.
We're going to take a quick break.
I'm going to show you a clip from Ryan Long so you can understand what's going on.
Here to tell you about our sponsors. We're going to take a quick break here to tell you about our sponsors. Now, this episode is brought to you by Bunker Vitamins.
So Ryan Long is playing The Patriot Hour. And then he's got, I'm not sure, who is that? Is that, I forgot, I don't know, I can't tell what that is. Nathan Cox. It says the Comrade Cast, but it's not his real name. So when Ryan Long talks, he's the Patriot Hour right wing, and the leftist is the other guy.
Now, this episode is brought to you by Bunker Vitamins. The world is ending, folks. You're going to want all the nutrients that you can get.
All right, comrades. This next segment is brought to you by Monsanto and Pepsi-Cola.
Now, this is an anti-critical race theory cup. For those of you who hate propaganda, you're going to love drinking out of this.
And that Tax the Rich moment was brought to you by Amazon and China National Petroleum.
This is just a mug that says liberals are bad.
Angie's List and Chase Bank.
Folks, I can't wait to tell you about this new product, Freedom Water. Now, this is just a jug of water for those who love freedom. Good old-fashioned American H2O.
Citadel and Berkshire Hathaway.
January 6th, commemorative Patriot Plungers. Now, if you use the promo code ElectionStolen...
This podcast is also a collaboration with Netflix Podcast Studio, HBO, and Hulu.
Now, this is Second Amendment computer paper here. It's just a blank sheet of paper for those out there that love the Second Amendment.
State Farm Insurance if you want to save.
This is a Patriot pillow, folks. As you know, the Civil War is about to happen. You're going to want a good night's sleep first.
10 reasons why you should get boosted, brought to you by Pfizer.
Now,
so this is the funny thing, and the reason why I bring this up. Dunkin' Donuts would have no problem. None of these companies would have any problem advertising on any leftist show. They would never say that. YouTube is leftist, Facebook is leftist, and none of these advertisers are like, well, the left-wing bias on your platform is a problem for us.
I just don't think the transgression will be big enough to really anger the MAGA overlords enough. Before with the Bud Light, it was the transgenders, and that really gets the people going. This sending an email saying you won't advertise with them, it doesn't equate to that transgender culture war, electrocuted rail of really getting everybody going. This is just kind of
because how many companies are not even responding to these emails, right? Like at least Dunkin' is sort of saying like, this is why we can't do it. I bet there are tons that they reach out to who just like quietly delete the email from Rumble, and apparently we're not going to boycott them because we don't know who they are.
Frankly, nice of them to respond. I see Cat Turd is leading the way on all the boycotts or anybody who crosses the line against MAGA. I think he did something similar to Kyle Rittenhouse. So now if you cross the line, Cat Turd is number one. We'll put you in the struggle session, the MAGA struggle session coming from Cat Turd.
Yeah, they struggle sessioned Kyle Rittenhouse. That was a mistake.
And now they're putting Dunkin' Donuts in there with him.
I'm okay with the Dunkin' Donuts one.
Yeah, I'm okay. Yeah.
I could do my rest of my entire life with never having another Dunkin' Donuts coffee or anything else.
Dunkin' Donuts was like the only chain in town, a very small town I grew up in, so I have a strong affinity for it. But that being said, there are so many local coffee companies. Like coffee is an easy thing to buy smaller than from a big national chain.
I'd rather have no coffee.
Yeah, I agree.
Well,
I don't
that's
drink
a
coffee.
lifestyle
I don't
choice.
understand.
I mean, I'll drink coffee every day, but I'd rather have no coffee than Dunkin' Donuts coffee.
And
same thing for Starbucks, by the way.
I give Starbucks like a C+.
Because you like burn stuff.
Well, that's why I give them a C+ because it's not always that bad.
Yeah.
But that's.
But they always hate cops, and they always kind of hate people on the right.
Oh, as a corporation's no good.
Yeah. So
I'm just saying in terms of their coffee.
I think it's
Dunkin'
garbage.
Donuts.
The actual quality.
All their drinks are
right.
It's garbage.
It's
don't
mediocre.
go to Dunkin' Donuts. It's not good for you. Most of their
brew
drinks.
your coffee at home. Like a
I mean, they
grown-up.
serve donuts, and then for a lot of people go get their other sugary garbage drinks. It's like 50 grams of sugar, all their gross syrups. Just that stuff's unhealthy for you. Don't go to
much
boycott
negativity
Dunkin'
from Elad
Donuts
tonight.
I was going to be like,
for
how
your
dare
health,
you?
not because of this particular cat turd.
Yeah, you
tweet.
shouldn't be eating these donuts, man. I hear these stories all the time. There are people who are like, when I go to Europe, when I'm outside of America, I eat bread and I feel fine. I don't gain weight. In the United States, I eat bread and I just instantly gain tons of weight.
The binders.
Is that with binders?
Yeah, so they're commercial binders that make them shelf stable for longer. My wife bakes bread. We've gone like the full like trad life thing. My wife makes sourdough now, so it's trendy.
Does she sell it?
What's up?
You guys have a bakery?
We do not have a bakery. We have a home, and we have a bunch of kids running around.
But you
eating the
get
sourdough.
imported foreign flour?
She has. She uses either King Arthur or something organic from Costco. We buy in bulk. We go through seriously like 20 pounds of flour at a very fast clip. The other day she was like, "Hey, do we have where's that 10-pound bag?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And she's
Any
like,
seed
"There's
oils
no way
in
I use
that
it."
bread or?
No, dude, come on now.
Just had to make sure.
And we use like really good butter that's grass-fed butter, from good grass-fed cows. But the end of the day is those commercial binders are the thing that are really ugly. If you go eat, let's say, French bread in Paris, you can run on a baguette like all day long, and you're not going to feel the same way as if you were to go get one that's coming from like a Safeway or what other stores are out there, Publix. I'm trying to think of HEB. I'll try to work
all of the grocery
I'm
store
working my
chains
way
under
across the nation. Yeah, but as you do those, like those things, those will sit on the shelf for days, and they'll last in your house for days. Like sourdough is good for like a day and a half, 2 days, and then it's really good for croutons after that because that's how it's supposed to be.
Your food is
So
supposed to go bad.
let's check Dunkin'.
Supposed to go
While we're here and we're talking about whether or not anyone should boycott Dunkin' Donuts,
Enriched flour. There
we've got the product name Buttermilk Donut, and it says ingredients: buttermilk cake donut mix, enriched wheat flour, malted barley flour, niacin, iron, thiamine, mononitrate, riboflavin, folic acid. Oh, that doesn't mean a lot. Sugar, soybean oil, powdered buttermilk, dry egg yolk leavening. Let's see, pyrophosphate, sodium aluminum phosphate, modified food starch, soy flour, soy lecithin.
That's just baking soda.
What's konjac flour? Is it pronounced? I don't think it's pronounced cognac flour, is it?
I think it's
Palm oil,
It's the natural flavors for me. That always gets me.
cornstarch, cellulose gum, potassium sorbate. There's a little bit of bad stuff in there, but
that's going to go bad a lot faster than some of the other products. And donuts go bad too.
calories-
Anybody who's ever eaten donuts at Dunkin', that are like at night when you go in and they baked them in the morning.
No,
it's an inferior product.
Famously throw them out at night.
They have to.
Like their deal.
Yeah. So like
that's
donuts.
good.
Yeah, you want that.
right. You don't like when the donuts get stale and are bad. That's good. When the McDonald's sits on the shelf for 5 years and doesn't mold, I got
The
questions.
Twinkies that like never change at
Right.
all. Right. As the thesis states, food is supposed to go bad.
It's supposed to go bad.
Well,
I think
it just
people
means
throw-
that there's other things eating it, and if they can't eat it,
You've killed them all because the food is toxic.
Yeah,
It doesn't
I don't know
allow
if you
the other
should be
things in the
eating
world.
it.
Yeah, you shouldn't eat it because your microgut is going to get destroyed.
Feels like every few months there's a new thing to boycott for another reason.
Are you into that? You want to boycott stuff?
No, I like buying things.
What's your favorite boycott?
I'm a dirty, filthy capitalist. I see something I like, I want to throw my money at it.
I
want to
like
buy things.
organic.
Hold on, what would make you
boycotts.
boycott somebody?
What would make me boycott something? Impulsively, I want to say the Israel-Palestine conflict, but even then, it's actually not true because I love eating at Lebanese and Palestinian restaurants. Whenever I travel a lot for work, and I love Middle Eastern food, and there won't be a lot of Israeli restaurants in random areas.
What if
a lot of Lebanese, a lot of Palestinian restaurants?
Would you boycott? Would you boycott Dunkin' Donuts if they launched a promotional From the River to the Sea campaign where if you sing the song, they'll give you 10% off?
You know, if I were to be inclined to buy Dunkin' Donuts products, then yeah, I wouldn't be swayed otherwise. It's just, the bottom line is if I want your product, I'll buy it. And I'm not arrogant enough to think my individual dollar will make a difference, but maybe those very influential Jews with a lot of shekels would. So that would be the...
All right, let's get to the political news. Ladies and gentlemen, Trump
I'm the Jew
says,
to cross, but not the other stuff.
From ABC News, Trump says he has agreed to offer from ABC News to debate Kamala Harris. Trump had previously cast doubt about debating Harris on ABC. Well, they were supposed to debate on Fox News, and then Kamala Harris didn't want to do it, so Trump agreed to her terms, I guess. And this will be on September 10th. I know we're all excited for this. I don't know. What do you guys think? Harris is apparently not... She hasn't agreed to any of the other debates. Trump wants 3. He gave this press conference where he said she's weak. I don't know the press conference earlier today was actually that good.
It was mid. It was not his best.
It was. I think he was just trying to generate press coverage.
Yeah, I think you're starting to see the Trump campaign go back on the offensive, which I appreciate. I think for a little while, especially with the opening days of the Harris campaign, they were sort of naturally having to respond to what was being presented to them. I saw that Harris had tweeted out something like, I see that Trump has finally agreed to the debate, like took him long enough or something like that, which I find so crazy because the original ABC September 10th debate that they had agreed to was Trump-Biden. And I don't understand.
It's not the same deal.
It's not the same thing. I don't understand why the narrative is like he was backing out of a prearranged agreement when Biden backed out first.
When you change the terms of the agreement, it's like, all right, $10,000 and I'm giving you this Honda Civic. And you're like, cool. And then you show up and you're like, just kidding. It's a Ford Pinto, but it looks really nice. And you're like, that's not the same deal we agreed on. We're going to have to renegotiate the price. We're going to have to renegotiate the details. I'm going to want a warranty. Like, it's a different thing. You brought in someone completely new who, by the way, didn't get any primary votes, but you brought in a totally different animal. Of course you're going to renegotiate.
Right. And
it's absurd to think
this
otherwise.
is what I think is so strange about the Kamala Harris campaign in general, which is that she's walking this line of like, I'm going to carry the Biden legacy, and also like I'm a new, different person.
Yeah, on day one, I'm going to do something new.
If you didn't like what he did, I'm not doing that. But if you liked it, that was all me because I'm on that ticket. Like this is just back and forth that's going to make me personally crazy through November. But I totally agree with you. I mean, if I thought I was voting for you and Elad, and suddenly Serge and some other random guy, Serge being our producer, showed up, I would be sort of frustrated because it wasn't the same ticket, even if you guys are claiming to be part of the same party.
Until they switched your chip, like the meme. When you got the new chip in, then you'd be ready to go.
No chips for me. But the other part of this is really, I think that Trump being like, so she had said, I thought you said anytime, anywhere, which I'm pretty sure that's what Biden said. Him coming back and saying, okay, 3 debates, back to back to back. The fact that he had proposed, like, I think it was September 5th, this September 10th date, and then September 25th. Like, he is trying to wear Kamala out, which I find fascinating. He is a much better debater than she is.
The more you put her in front of a microphone, the more that you put her to the test, the more you squeeze her, the more you're going to see how weak she is.
And if there are
she's only got a certain number of canned things, and then it's all cackles after that.
She's
like 3/4 of the can is cackles. Like
she's going to run out the first time, and then any gaffes, any issues that come up, he has another debate
and
coming
he's
up
going to punch
quickly.
her on it. And he doesn't need notes. He's going to remember because he's got that little, he's got that mental thing. He's like, oh, I see where your weakness is. You don't know how to say things back to these particular points. And
Were you always interested in Trump? Because you sound supportive of him right now. I don't want to make any assumptions here.
I'm ambivalent. I am a politically conservative, but I'm not a Republican. And I didn't vote for Trump in 2016. I actually liked Gary Johnson better, mostly because one of my buddies hung out with Gary Johnson. One of my buddies' dad hung out with him. But he got my vote in 2020. And I cannot imagine, but I'm not going to vote for a Democrat. Like, I have kids, so like that's a no-go. And like, I don't like abortion, so that's easy. He's not my best candidate, but my best candidate's not running. So I know that.
Who is your best candidate?
I don't know, Steve Friend or maybe my buddy Garrett O'Boyle, who's been here before. Like somebody who's got like a lot of principle that has never basically screwed up. And like those people don't run for president. So Trump is the better option by a lot. There's no other person that's going to be able to carry that banner. So that's really easy. I'm not trying to elect a role model for my kids. And that's the thing that I always have to separate. Everybody that's mad about who the person is, right? It's like, dude, it's not a perfect vessel. And by the way, I actually believe in a constitutional republic. I don't think the president should be that important. I think we went off the rails in 1913 for a lot of reasons, and people that are in the chat will be, all amped up about the Federal Reserve. But when we started direct electing senators, I think we went off the rails. We took the situation and we took the infrastructure of this country and we changed it fundamentally. And I also would like to see all the state houses that are red right now. I'd love to see them just go like, you know what? We don't care about your election. Do a general election, say what you want, and then we're going to appoint our electors anyway, because we're not going to do that. And you would still have a better outcome, because I don't think the president should be that important.
Yeah.
The president is not supposed to be a king. And we keep trying to elect like role model, savior, and king. And I just step away from that. I don't want any of that. So anyway, Trump is fine. He's just the people around him that love him, that I like, I'm respectful of them. I've never spent any time with Trump personally. So I don't have that kind of like affection for him. And I don't do the thing where it's like, oh, I've never met him, but like he'll fix all the ills. It's like, I don't believe in that either. Like, I've also been alive long enough.
One president fix all the ills?
Of course not.
I think so much of this election is going to be sort of righting the ship, like turning it in a direction.
It's going to have to stop the ship tilting. Like,
whichever metaphor you want to go for, right? Like there is something wrong with what our boat is doing, and somebody needs to correct it.
We didn't get fat overnight, right? You're not going to take one pill and drop 50 or 60 pounds and suddenly be healthy. Mm-hmm. What you need to do is stop eating all the things. Like whatever it is, you need to stop the hemorrhaging or stop putting on the weight or stop the unhealthy lifestyle. I would like to see a stop on that. And Trump spent a bunch of money. Like, let's be real. The guy spent a bunch more money than most people would say are conservatives. So I don't put him necessarily conservative, but he did an objectively better job than the alternative. We've seen it. Like all the excuses they have, they're running away from their record, as you accurately pointed out. Yeah. She's everything to everything. Kamala's a chameleon.
Mm-hmm. Well, she hasn't even put out a platform yet.
Why do you need a platform when you have voters?
You keep hearing this term, it's a vibes election. It's a vibes election. People who are voting for Kamala are voting for vibes. And you said earlier, you're not voting for a role model for kids. It reminds me of this adage all the time, like, oh, people want a candidate they would have a beer with. I don't actually believe that's true.
I don't need to have a beer with them. I need outcomes. And so I think Dan Bongino said it when he was talking to Tucker best, and it stuck with me. I'm not interested in politicians. I'm interested in outcomes. Are the outcomes better for me, my family, the people around me, American liberty? Can we get those things going?
Well, there's two problems, though. That's if you're talking about maximizing the amount of votes you receive from 330 million people, every margin counts. You're going to go lowest common denominator.
Sure.
And that means you're going to want to go on stage and go freedom. And that's
no tax on tips.
Well, that's actually a policy.
But the problem is I don't know how you enact it. You got to still get the House. That's the thing people keep forgetting. Like, where are the people saying, like, not only do we need a Trump, we also need them to go ahead and capture the House and maybe the Senate too.
Theoretically, there are things you could do at the executive through the executive branch by instructing how things are enforced in terms of law enforcement, by saying we no longer prioritize investigations.
Hopefully it's just chopping off the FBI at the knees.
But that's a policy saying I don't want taxes on tips or for Social Security. Those are policy plans. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying Kamala Harris is going freedom.
Right.
She has no policy plans whatsoever. The second problem is shadow campaign, ballot harvesting. I wish the election was actually about convincing people and giving them outcomes, but it's not. It's about, can you get more pieces of paper with names on them than the other guy?
Look at what Seb Gorka put out. He shared it earlier on X, and it was an interview of a bunch of people on the street. They're all women, and one guy that is effeminate, so I won't speculate further than that. But they interview, and they're like, what do you think about Kamala Harris? And like, she's doing a great job. She's an awesome vice president. We're like really feeling good about it. And they're like, what's your favorite accomplishment? Or like, what do you feel most strongly about that she's done? And they're like, honestly, like I don't actually know anything about anything. I just have feelings about stuff. And you're right. That's the vibes thing. That is the freedom. That is the no platform. There are people that will still go out and vote. The question is, are they really interested? The polling that I saw from CBS and YouGov essentially said a huge chunk of the Kamala voters are anti-Trump voters.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know how much hate drives people to the polls the second time around.
Right.
I don't think it moves people as much as the 60% of the people that are like, I'm in for Trump.
Third time around.
Yeah. But also when Trump is the president during COVID and people are angry, they're going to vote. But again, I don't think that matters. I think Democrats are going to send volunteers to nursing homes and to schools, and they're going to collect universal mail-in votes. And then there's going to be a bunch of people who are like, did I vote? I think I did. Oh, whatever. Who cares?
Guess what? The FBI won't investigate it. As we found out in 2020, they refused. They've already told us the election crimes they're interested in are all about voter suppression, not about voter fraud.
Because they've want the Democrats to win.
Of course. I mean, this is the
because
case.
As we heard from, who was it, McCabe, that many of them fear they'll be jailed and they'll have to flee the country if Trump wins. So I have to assume.
What did you do? Why do you need to be jailed? What did you do there, Andy McCabe? That's the question I always have when you start telling me you're going to get jailed.
On this debate stuff, I think one of the important details is that Kamala Harris only agreed to the ABC debate and not the other three that Trump was trying to put forward. That's significant because one of the other ones was supposed to be with Fox News, and Kamala Harris has yet to be asked a serious question about her campaign or any of her political stances on this campaign, and she's only going to media-friendly environments, even down the line, because the debate is scheduled from a month from now. She hasn't agreed to the Fox News debate. The previous one was on CNN. Obviously, the last time the Republicans and Democrats debated, the Democrat dropped out. So I think we're in for an interesting debate. But I don't know. I'm having nightmares of when Trump debated Joe Biden the last time, and they were just yelling over each other, and I just had really uncomfortable feelings come across me. He had a really great debate performance this more recent time, but
you're talking about 2020 versus 2024.
I think he's got a better sophisticated take on it right now. From watching him, it's way more disciplined than I would expect, which is great. And Kamala's terrible at this. Like if you leave dead air, she fills it with weird laughs. If you leave any dead air, she's like the most uncomfortable person.
I think she's got some kind of Tourette syndrome.
It's possible.
I'm not being cute.
I'm not a doctor.
A lot of people hyper focus on what they think is laughing. I actually think she may be laughing to cover up a tic. So when she talks, what you need to look for is everybody looks for when she goes, well, let me tell you.
We need Montel.
No, you look at the videos. When the one video I think is good evidence, and I think people should start investigating this, is when she's saying stay woke and be more woke. She's not laughing. She goes, I think we need to stay woke. I'm like, whoa. She wasn't laughing there. Then she goes, I think the laughing was trying to mask that she was having some kind of, maybe she's having a panic attack. And she's trying to make it seem like she's laughing. Well, she doesn't know what to say.
That's what I'm saying.
The stay woke thing was a T-shirt. She was just saying something she heard on a T-shirt.
Probably saw somebody walk with a shirt that had it on.
Right. She's like, stay woke. That's
My brother
what I
did that
say,
once
right?
when he was on mushrooms. He just said things that he read in front of him. So that's
I think we should, somebody should pull up as many videos of her speaking as possible, because people can do this, and look for when she laughs to see how often she's just going, ha, 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 and how often she's talking and going,
yeah, hysterical.
a concern.
No, I think it's a panic attack or a tick. Like she can't.
She's covering. I get it.
Yeah, right.
Like kind of like what you see, what is it, Joaquin Phoenix do in Joker, which I just watched on the plane in today.
Right.
Really uncomfortable stuff where you're like, this could go into a cry, this could go into a complete freak out.
Yeah, that's a really good point. If you've seen Joker, Joaquin Phoenix, he's got this disorder where he laughs uncontrollably at random moments, and then he starts busting out laughing like, ah, 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 and then he covers his mouth and starts
painful.
crying.
Yeah,
right.
It doesn't look right. She's covered it decently. I just think she's utterly untalented at a lot of this stuff. So if it turns out that she's covering something up, none of that matters.
That's stay woke video, man. I got to pull that one up.
If she gets in front of Donald Trump and Donald Trump does what he should do, which is be very disciplined, like the best lines that he had sitting up against Biden, he let Biden kind of ramble on and talk about how they defeated Medicare or whatever the heck it is, and he goes, I don't really know what he said, and I don't think he knows either. It's like epic. It's like drop the mic.
I want to play this clip. Just listen. We've heard it before, but really listen.
We have to stay woke. Like everybody needs to be woke. And you can talk about if you're the
that's not laughing. Like
That's massive discomfort.
Listen, no one around her is laughing. There's no joke being made, and she goes, and then she's laugh. I think
everybody needs to be woke. And you can talk about if you're
I think she's trying to make it seem like it's laughter. Like you were saying with Joker, when he starts busting out laughing and then he starts crying.
There's something.
Wokest or woker, but just stay more woke than less woke. Yeah.
She's obviously extremely uncharismatic. But my biggest concern for Trump would be in the same way that he made Joe Biden, I think, look old and senile. Donald Trump has 20 years on Kamala Harris. So in a potential matchup, I think Kamala Harris could potentially, the dichotomy between the two, the juxtaposition, seem more energetic, seem more young.
He can beat that really easily by just being presidential, which is to say, let her talk, let her giggle and cackle, let her be weird, let her say all the things she says that are basically word salads of nonsense. The best thing is when she finds a word and then she touches it like 7 times like it's the base. She cannot help it. We used to make this analogy. You guys remember the movie, the X-Files movie, where Magneto's walking and he's like calling together like a bridge in the air. It's all these pieces of metal and he's walking across it, but it's coming from nowhere.
Kamala canceled the debate.
Did she just now?
I think she agreed to the September 10th one with ABC, but not the other two.
Patrick Webb, I don't know if this is true.
Unconfirmed reporting. That's how you cover that. That's easy.
Yeah, that she's not.
Sources in a position to know.
She's refusing the other debates. Trump may not do the.
She's not going to do the Fox News one.
Right.
She wants to stay on friendly turf, which I don't blame her for. The thing is, Trump is so good on his feet, is why, I mean, I still have confidence in him. He's so good on his feet, and he'll likely have an iconic moment like when he did with Hillary Clinton with the locker.
And I think he is a little bit more unpredictable in terms of what Trump you're going to get. I agree with you. He should be disciplined, but I assume that any Democratic strategist is saying he's going to fly off the handle. He's going to be loud. He's going to try and interrupt.
That's what they thought Biden was going to do to him.
But she's sort of a one-trick pony, right? Like, we know how she'll present on the debate stage, that she is, female girl boss, here to wag her finger at Trump and say, I am speaking. That's her go-to, got a moment for any kind of. We just saw this the other night with the protesters.
Exactly. Like, she had a planned moment in that for when protests were going to chant at her. She'll have a planned moment for when Trump inevitably tries to interrupt her. Or who knows? Maybe they'll even do the muted mics.
She might even lower her voice and tell us a story because she's a woman making a point.
I hope she whispers.
There's only one way for her to present, whereas I actually think Trump is more agile. Part of it is the charisma. He's better on his feet. Part of it is because he's actually very authentic. You are getting whatever Trump you're getting, whereas Kamala is presenting as politician.
Think about this, though. Donald Trump has basically been attacked more than anybody that I've ever seen in any venue. Name it. It doesn't matter. In the public eye for a decade. Mm-hmm. It's pretty hard to take those kind of hits and continuously, all of this stuff, he's heard it all before. You're not going to find a new line of attack after a decade of this stuff.
Right.
So I do think it's interesting to see him go out there. Like I said, as long as he kind of he can dial it back. He doesn't need, they have to campaign on a record, and the record is atrocious, and she's terrible at doing it. So just let her talk as much. I would give her 90% of the airtime.
Let's jump to this. We got a tweet from Mario Knopfler. He says, Joe Rogan endorses RFK Jr. Quote, he's the only one that makes sense. We'll play the clip for you. I don't know if it was a direct endorsement, but it's basically what Joe is saying.
That's politics. They do it on the left. They do it on the right. They gaslight you. They manipulate you. They promote narratives. And the only one who's not doing that is Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
You a fan?
Yeah, I am a fan. Yeah, he's the only one that makes sense to me. He's the only one that he doesn't attack people. He attacks actions and ideas, but he's much more reasonable and intelligent. I mean, the guy was an environmental attorney and cleaned up the East River. I mean, he's a legitimate guy. Before anybody started calling him an anti-vaxxer, which I thought he was too. I thought he was this nut, this conspiracy theorist nut, until I read his book. I read The Real Anthony Fauci, and I'm like, what is it? How much of this is real? These health organizations, insane amounts of money, and then also the government is in on it, and also the number is that these guys made off of these products.
Well, okay, I think we hit the point that he was making with RFK Jr. I'll tell you what I really think. I think Joe Rogan cannot endorse Trump.
Mm-hmm. He's going to have to watch out from the tweets from Cat Turd. Cat Turd might be coming after Joe Rogan pretty soon.
Will be meaningless. I think Joe Rogan's audience is too big, and I know a lot of people who are liberals who watch him. And I think Joe's concern is if he were to come out and say, look, RFK Jr. is probably better but can't win. So I think the only other option is Trump because Kamala makes no sense.
He's also in Texas. It kind of doesn't matter who he votes for.
Well, I mean, in Texas, I think
down ballot probably.
Texas actually is pretty close, especially with a lot of what's going on in Eagle Pass. But that being said, if Joe were to come out and endorse either candidate, it's going to have a massive negative impact on the entirety of his business. Mm-hmm. And I think he's taken the Michael Jordan route of conservatives buy shoes too, which is play the neutral road. Don't endorse anybody. RFK Jr. is safe because he's not really in the game. And I don't think it's. I don't think Joe has to endorse anybody.
Yeah, why?
So him saying he likes RFK Jr. and he makes the most sense doesn't mean he actually thinks he's the one you should vote for. That it's who he is going to be voting for.
Yeah.
For those who are considering voting for a third-party candidate, especially if you are in a swing state, you're essentially throwing your vote away, and it doesn't serve any political purpose in that race. It could serve a political purpose insofar as you're saying, here's 2 or 3%, but in all cases, voting for the so-called lesser of two evils is how you actually practice politics in reality. To have a protest vote in Jill Stein or RFK Jr. or something is a waste of your time and
I think maybe you don't feel this way.
I disagree.
I think a lot of people are voting for third-party candidates, whether it be RFK or a green ticket candidate or whatever, because they don't actually want to commit to a protest vote. It's sort of the third way out. You could either cast a vote for someone that you're like, I absolutely hate this person, I'm going to vote for their opponent, or you could be like, I'm just gonna go stand over here with these other people and watch from afar.
I think there's something about youth. So I saw Kyle Rittenhouse get kind of raked over the coals for saying he wants to write in Rand Paul. There's a couple things. Ron Paul.
Yeah.
Sorry. The story is that when you're younger, you have less skin in the game. You don't have kids. You may not be married. You may not make as much income. And so you can be more idealistic. You can be a single issue voter. You can stand on principles and think it matters. As you get older, you get a little bit more pragmatic. You start realizing that outcomes are a little bit more important. So maybe you have a little bit more skin in the game. You understand maybe you're making more money and the realistic outcome changes. But I don't want to live in a country where if you say, hey, I don't agree with you politically, I want to vote for somebody else, that we have to cancel you, because that's gross to me. Because I grew up in the 80s and we didn't do that. And we didn't do that in the 90s either. Like, there were people that were friends that voted for, that didn't vote for Bill Clinton, and they still got along. Mm-hmm. You don't have to vote for the party that your friends do if we want to live in a reasonable America. So, like, I don't, honestly, and are you looking to Kyle Rittenhouse for political advice? Like, I'm not. I might look to him for how to use the forward assist on an AR under stress. He did a good job with that. But at the end of the day, like, he's not making any decisions for me. I just think it's weird that we go and cancel people over that stuff.
I do not believe that if I were to have a conversation with Joe about the current state of U.S. affairs, that he could logically disagree with me about why Trump is the correct person to vote for. I am not saying Trump is perfect. I am not saying the right does not do the things that Joe is saying they do with gaslighting, whatever. I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying, based on the record we saw from Trump in the first place, I did not vote for him in 2016. There's a reason why I voted for him in 2020. Mm-hmm. And based on where we're at currently, I think the logical conclusion is, there's no reason to vote for RFK Jr. Mm-hmm. Donald Trump actually is a marginally net positive president for a lot of reasons in the political landscape. I am saying that anybody who's honestly approaching the issues, the news, and what's currently happening in this country could not reasonably conclude there's anything else to do. That's why my immediate assumption is, and I mean no disrespect, that Joe is just trying to stay neutral to a certain degree. He's saying, I don't want. Yeah. But also consider this too. Joe's show is a massive red pill for a lot of people, especially with the COVID narrative and the lies. Yep. For people who are watching Joe, if he comes out and says Trump, and then instantly they're like, oh, he's a Trump guy. I can't watch his show anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All of a sudden now, when Joe tries to tell them the truth, they're not going to want to listen to him.
That's right.
So it's the smartest thing, probably strategically, business-wise, and politically, when you have a show as big as his, to just say, I don't want to be involved in the politics. Listen to what we have to say. Because I tell you this, more people have probably voted for Trump and will vote for Trump because of Joe Rogan than anybody else, whether or not Joe says he's going to vote for him.
I think
he promotes working out. He makes everyone conservative.
Well,
he fascist. How dare you?
Joe calls out media lies and manipulations.
Right.
And then once you start digging into that and you realize you've been lied to, you end up looking into what Trump is actually doing. And I'm not saying every single person who does is going to vote for him. Some people might actually be lefty and be like, no, I don't like him. But a lot of people will wake up to the fake news and say, they lied about Trump. That wasn't true. I actually don't think he's that bad. And so I think, Tucker and Joe having the biggest podcast on Spotify is a massive white pill.
He touches things so softly. The way that he approaches things are something that nobody else is really doing, the way that he does it. And that's why he's been so successful. He doesn't come out and say, hey, I think all these really aggressive things. He says it softly. He says it in a funny way. But he's made people confront their own beliefs. It's like, hey, you believe this thing? Well, why do you believe that? Like, let's just turn it on its head and give us a skeptic approach, which is what we should be doing. Approaching people Socratically by asking questions, asking simple questions, and making people evaluate their beliefs. So I agree with you. He moves people to the right, but basically he moves people into asking basic sort of, if you assume this, if you want to believe this, why do you believe this? And can you justify it? And oftentimes, he brings on really interesting guests that kind of tell you other stuff. The weirdest thing I ever heard on Joe Rogan that has changed my mind about something, and I don't know if it's true or not, but I listened to Alex Jones and him talking about aliens. And Alex Jones like flirting the idea that these could be human time travelers from like way in the future that have basically don't need a physical body anymore in the same way. So they have huge evolved craniums. And I was like, oh my God, that makes way more sense than anything else that I've heard. It makes way more sense than people like coming to spy on us like a petri dish. So I just took that away and I went, cool. Like now I question what I think about things.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be on any particular thing. You just, if you're willing to question anything that you tell, you're like, oh, I believe this to be true. Take a moment, evaluate why. If there's something to sort of chip away at that, it makes you flexible. And I think it's good.
Yeah, but time travelers.
Come on.
No. It makes more sense that we're in a simulation, which is entertainment for an advanced species that use us to generate. It's basically an AI-generated sitcom, and Donald Trump is the main character.
I think RFK Jr. is closer to Trump than he is to Biden. So this is, in a way, a sort of
What do you mean,
endorsement
in
of
policy or in personality?
in policy and personality, yeah. And I think there were phone calls between Donald Trump and RFK Jr. in the past, rumors of them potentially working together.
Well, there was a leaked phone call where Trump was asking for the endorsement. RFK apparently was like, no, delete it, it's bad. We don't want to do that.
I don't know if these similar in terms of every policy, but I think he is more charismatic than Kamala Harris is. I think it would be a more interesting debate if you had RFK and Trump up, because I actually think they would probably go into policy, whereas like it's just going to be a personality clash. I like that Joe Rogan has basically not endorsed. I mean, interesting that he's thrown his weight behind RFK, but I don't want celebrities to endorse people. I don't want people who own businesses that I like to endorse people. And maybe that's a little bit of political fatigue, which I actually think a lot of Americans are feeling. But I don't need to know who someone is. I don't need to know who everyone is voting for, right? There are some people whose advice or whose lifestyles or who something else might be meaningful to you, that they have a good grip on the economy, or they're really working hard on an issue that you are passionate about. So knowing who they think is a good candidate would matter, right? But to your point, one of the cool things about a lot of podcasters, but definitely Joe Rogan, is that it's just about the presentation of information and asking questions. And in some ways, getting him to just be like, I'm not going to tell you who I'm voting for, is powerful, because it's more about you having to analyze critically the information and his takes on things and use your brain to come to a conclusion, as opposed to being told, well, that's who this star is voting for, so obviously you must vote for that person too.
And this RFK Jr., again, his impact on this race cannot be overstated,
Yeah, it's huge.
Especially as we're coming closer to November. Trump's clearly concerned because he's having phone calls with him. You have to imagine what's going on the Democrat side. So these guys are very concerned, and he's going to want a lot in return politically to potentially drop out down the line. He probably should down the line and use his political leverage for something, his political capital, and try to get some sort of position in the Trump administration, help Trump secure a win. But I think if it does go to November and he doesn't drop out, it'll actually severely hurt Trump. The more and more I see from RFK Jr. and the closer to election time we get, I see more similar. I think the average RFK supporter is more likely to have Trump as a second choice than Kamala Harris.
I think there are enough people who were going to default vote for Biden who are unhappy with Kamala that they will look for a third-party candidate, whether it's RFK or someone else. I think that Kamala is not as strong with the Democratic base as people would maybe like to believe.
It's this vaccine stuff, because a lot of Trump's base was very concerned and didn't believe in had questions about the vaccines, of course. A lot of Trump's base did. And he was the Operation Warp Speed guy. He's saying the COVID-19 vaccine was mankind's largest achievement. And a lot of his base doesn't like that. And I think they were able to go to RFK Jr. as an alternative, who is skeptical of many different COVID vaccines and different vaccines efficacies.
There are, maybe not for COVID, but there are a lot of progressives or left-wing people who are just kind of crunchy and don't like vaccine stuff.
That's who used to be in that camp.
Well, that's why RFK came from that
I feel like there's a lot of those diehard Trump supporters who are really ticked off about how the COVID vaccine stuff went down. There are a lot of diehard Trump supporters who are totally against Operation Warp Speed and
they just want him to stop talking about it,
and are willing to pivot over that issue.
I don't know if they're willing to pivot. I don't know if they are.
A small amount of them will be significant. It doesn't even have to be a large amount of them. Even a couple of percent in a couple of states is an issue. If RFK Jr. only gets 2, 3, 4%, that still has a huge impact on the swing states, even less. So
well, let's throw this in the mix. We got the story from the Post Millennial. Major U.S. banks shutter 33 locations in just 2 weeks. Major U.S. banks are closing down branch locations and shifting to online services. And something we saw in Australia, they're getting rid of the ability to withdraw cash from your banks. What we're seeing here, I think, is just market downturn. The market just crashed. The economy is not good. People are struggling. And so I don't know if any of these other ancillary things matter. If we're really talking about an election that's based on the issues, it's the economy, stupid. And regular people, you can lie to them all day and night. But when they go to the grocery store, if they look at that bill and they scoff, whoever's in the administration now is in trouble.
Let's get really cynical, though. Do you actually think that we're going to have any kind of semblance of a fair election?
No. I'm just saying, if this was really about who wins the argument.
And that's the hypothetical. And I think that's where people are forgetting. Because what I keep seeing is I listen to a lot of MAGA people, but I also will jump in on Twitter Spaces where people I disagree with, and I hide there anonymously and just lurk out and listen. And I want to see what they have to say. Today, there was a space, and Lev Parnas was in it, and they were talking about they don't think that Trump actually got shot in the ear because they've apparently never seen how super glue works when you have a small wound that you can actually close up with super glue, and you wouldn't see it very easily. And as a paramedic who's actually done that, and I've sealed up ears before from dog bites and other things, it works. It works really well. The thing is
just
that
making that up.
What's that? Super glue?
Kidding. I know you're not.
God, you should totally have 99-cent super glue in your pack. It has all the.
It was invented for wounds, wasn't it?
The stuff is called Dermabond that they use in the hospital. So it's a $40 tube, but you can get the 99-cent tube and it works just as well. It just burns a little bit longer.
But if you said that in one of those spaces, someone would be like, "He's not a real paramedic." That's not true at all.
I've actually taken my fingers down to the bone with a knife by being a bonehead because I'm just a regular dude, and I've cut myself down here and I've sealed them up with super glue, and overnight I was able to use them again. You're not going to tear it open; it'll close up, especially a really clean wound. But that's not what I want to talk about. Think about this.
Sorry, I'm derailing you.
These people rolled 100 miles an hour at a cliff the size of the Grand Canyon. They indicted him, and they got him in Florida. They got him in D.C. They got him in Georgia. They got him in New York. Okay, state and federal charges on all levels. They were able to only get one of them across the finish line. Does anyone actually think that we are not going to see Donald Trump? There's a very, very real possibility that the guys in New York decide, we bought this ticket, we're taking that ride. We're not going to drive up to the edge of this cliff at 100 miles an hour, stop and look at the view. I think they're going over it. And I think there's a strong probability he ends up in Rikers because that's what they are prepared to do. I don't see any fear of the weak candidate or the fact that they swapped out somebody in the most undemocratic move despite crying about how they're going to save democracy. There's nothing that tells me these people have any fear about what's coming up.
Or they're
I will.
desperate, right?
I just want to add this real quick as
desperation's the
well.
same thing.
In about 20 minutes, we're going to be in the hurricane.
Oh, man.
And so I got a big warning. My phone went off. We got a warning. So if the show disappears, you know why? It is not the CIA.
Is it Debbie? Is that what it's called?
I don't know.
It's Debbie.
So
It's Debbie.
let's say the election isn't
Always
fair
Debbie.
and then Trump loses in 2024. I think we're going to be in for such another turbulent 4 years as Trump will inevitably say the election was fake or stolen and will have his hold on the Republican Party for another at least 4 years and would run again.
I don't agree.
You don't think he'd run again in 2028?
I don't think he can.
Oh, I definitely think it would be the
At
revenge tour.
83 or whatever?
Yeah, if he's still kicking. If he still wanted it, then I think Republicans wouldn't have a choice.
I don't think so.
You don't think Trump would want it, or you don't think he'd get the support if he wanted it?
I think he's going to be in his 80s, and he's going to be like...
Joe
be like,
Biden
"I am
almost
a
did it. The
billionaire."
Democrats didn't seem to have any
I
problem
don't think
with
Joe
it.
Biden almost did it. I think you're misestimating.
Yeah.
He didn't even come close.
I think if they pushed off that debate until September, they would have had no other choice, and it was actually a huge miscalculation by the Joe Biden campaign to have that debate earlier than any other campaigns they ever do for general elections.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just was.
I think the Biden campaign miscalculated by having the debate when they did, but I don't think that Joe Biden almost got reelected because I think he was already facing really serious scrutiny before the debate.
He was the presumptive nominee at the time.
He was sort of the presumptive nominee for sure, but it's not like his party was happy.
So wait,
about
that's
it.
to say you guys don't think that Trump will want it, or that the party wouldn't give it to him if he did want it?
I could see it going either way.
Because I think if he
will-
wanted it, it's his for the taking, and there is no other clear alternative who could try to primary
We're talking
him.
about like 4 years from now, right? Like it's hard to say what will come
Political
up.
time that feels
We've
like
been
tomorrow.
No, it doesn't, because if you think back 4 years ago, so much has happened since then. I mean, it feels like it's tomorrow because we think in election cycles, but ultimately we pack huge histories into every 4 years. I mean, Nancy Pelosi used to be friends with Biden, and now she's like, yeah, I didn't try to pressure him out, and I haven't talked to him
She
since.
sent him that nice farm in Wisconsin where they have all the pretty grass.
Right,
And some
like,
guy with the
all
suppressed
kinds
22
of
or
political
whatever.
dynasty shift, especially if
Yep.
we're thinking about like the Supreme Court, right? The next president will probably name multiple Supreme Court, or at least nominate multiple Supreme Court justices. It's unclear to me what the landscape will look like in 4 years. And I think, maybe if Trump didn't get elected and he wanted it, he would get reelected. On the other hand, he could also be this political symbol, this martyr who was just stolen from, however his base will say it.
I think you guys are missing the ego play of Trump. I just couldn't imagine him
disagree. I
taking
think
that
at
step
a
down.
certain
It's
point,
just
if he go-
un-Trump-like, frankly.
I think if he lost again, it would make him bigger than
It wouldn't be losing again. In his rhetoric, it would have been stolen again.
whatever
and
it
not
is.
a
If
loss
he
in
doesn't
his
go to the
book.
White House now, it will become even bigger, and I think it will potentially really consolidate the movement behind him. Even if he's not at the top of it, they will say like, we have to avenge him in some way. I'm not talking about political violence, FBI, who's watching.
Politically avenged in the ballot box.
I'm talking about people saying, like, we need to elect on every level people who represent our values because this one guy we really wanted to didn't get in.
We also have I can't remember a time when this was the case, a first-term president lame duck for 6 months left. Look who's running the country right now. Has anyone just realized that, like, whenever you see anything, like Biden pops up and he says like a bunch of stumble slurs and people are like, that's just what he does. 5 weeks ago, that was insane. Yeah. Nobody would have, they would have been like, they would have covered for him. And now he walks out there and he's like, I got the 4 fingers. I don't know where you put the ring on. I guess you put it on your thumb and you're going.
Now he's working on his political achievements with this absolute garbage hostage deal. I don't know if we spent any time talking about it.
But the Russia trade?
The hostage deal is
Didn't they almost
horrible.
They almost sent Biden on the plane. Wasn't he trying to climb on the plane and disappear? He was
where we looped in multiple EU allies to have to trade Russian spies and criminals with blood on their hands
and we left people behind. Like,
can we at
it
least
was not
admit-
even like a perfect deal that we got everyone out. Like, we left stuff on the table. It's a
hostage
terrible
deals
negotiation.
incentivize more hostages to be taken. Unfortunately, that's just the political calculation.
But Joe Biden is going to tout this as his huge
achievement.
geopolitical accomplishment, which is crazy.
But the big win for me is that the Russian FSB assassin that they got out of Germany looks like what I want a Russian assassin to look like. He had
The optics are great for Russians.
He had a steely gaze. He looked like what I expect a Russian assassin to be.
And the story about you guys have probably all seen this, but there were Russian spies in, was it Poland in Estonia, in one of the Eastern European countries, and they were posing as being like Argentinian to the point where their children spoke Spanish, had no idea they were Russian, and when they got taken back to Russia on the plane, were completely blown away by this. They had no idea. Putin greeted them by saying Buenas noches because they don't speak Russian, because that's how deep their parents were undercover.
Yes.
That's wild to me.
Do not underestimate how dedicated these people are.
Yeah, the Russians are deeply, their spy network is deeply entrenched in Europe.
I heard that the president before Biden was working for the Russians.
That's what I heard too.
Yeah, crazy.
Well,
discredited multiple times, but I still hear it.
I heard
might be coming back
Biden
for a
is
second
working
term.
for Xi Jinping, so just pick your enemy here.
Well, he had that really naughty
Tim
phone
Waltz
call.
is like, have you seen the Tim Waltz China stuff?
How in the world was he in the military with a security clearance and like hanging
Flying
out and
to China.
living in China briefly? How is that possible? I don't know if you can do that.
Yeah.
I was not in the National Guard, so I only have active duty experience. But like, you couldn't even go to Mexico. Like, you can't go to Mexico. They're like, you're like, hey, I want to go to this wedding in Mexico, and they're like, sorry, it's in Mexico. That's a no-go zone right now. You can't go to Cancun for your friend's wedding, and you're like, I guess I'm not going.
Did you get a diplomatic passport?
I did when I was in the FBI.
Oh, okay.
And they didn't take it back, so I have my expired dip passport. It has the the red.
Does everybody who serves get a diplomatic passport? Like when you're working for the U.S. government? Like if you're a soldier?
No. So when I was an agent, you could get it. I just went over across the way to headquarters. They did them out of the Hoover building. If you thought you might need it and there was a possibility you might travel for work, you could get it. So it wasn't like, it wasn't like an exciting thing or wasn't granted to. If you thought it was a possibility, you can go through the rigmarole of filling out the paperwork and sending it over.
What does it do for you?
Nothing. It's the same passport. So it's red. So you'd use it on official duties. And so they basically log you in as dip status or as you're a representative of the U.S. government. You're there for official process. But I've heard of people using it on their personal travels as well. I had a regular passport as well. I had a blue and I had a red, and I don't know the advantage unless you're actually doing something that is very specific in a diplomatic mission, State Department or whatever. For what I was going to be doing, like, I didn't want to travel ever because the places they would have sent me to would be like looking at Chinese spies, and that seemed like it was not a good place to go. I definitely wasn't going to go to China. I knew that much.
Tim
He stole all
Waltz-
of our data.
Tim Waltz has like some weird Chinese connections.
Yeah, it's so strange.
Yeah.
And remember, China is where we pseudo-boycotted the Olympics, but we actually didn't. We sent all of our athletes. We just didn't send any high-ranking officials. And then we told the U.S. athletes, don't use your cell phone there because they will steal your information.
It's already done.
I don't understand the U.S.'s relationship with China, and I think it's very weird under the Biden administration.
All right, we're going to go to Super Chats. If you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, and head over to timcast.com. Click Join Us, become a member, because that members-only uncensored call-in show will be coming up at 10 p.m., where our members will actually call in, talk to us, and join the show. That could be you if you become a member at timcast.com. But for now, smash that like button. We're going to read your Super Chats. Frost787 says, first, what do you think of THGG? That hoe's got to go. Yeah, it's okay. I don't know. I think Crooked Kamala, Cackling Kamala, Crooked Kamala is probably good.
Yeah.
People are overthinking these nicknames. They want Tampon Tim, and I'm like, nobody knows what that means. You got to call him like Bad Economy Waltz. Just like, there you go. Bad economy guy. It
I think you should
don't
just
overthink
start
it.
saying who, because 71% of the country had no idea who he was.
That one works too. All right. Dalamar says, get all independent voters you know registered. Make a plan for election day or sooner to get them to vote Trump. There you go. Elliot Cruz says, spread it far and wide. When people hear Kamala Harris laugh, I want them to think of Ed, the nutty hyena from Lion King. Keep animals out of the Oval Office. Well, okay.
Oh, man.
I'm not your buddy guy says, I cannot understand how anyone could conclude this wasn't an inside job. Now I will admit who orchestrated may be up for debate, whether it was the globalist economic liberal order or China IDK. Seriously.
IDK.
Small mouse in a big field says it wasn't an inside job. They subcontracted it. Haha. Nowhere Man says, hey, Tim, watching for 3 years, and IRL is our household's primary news source. Keep up the great work. P.S. Ian is based and bring Spoon Man back on. Seamus abandoned us. Seamus has just left and he's never come back. In fact, I texted Seamus, and this is true. I texted Seamus when Anti-Woke Dog came out, his cartoon, saying that it was based, and he only just messaged me back about it today. Seamus, you know, I don't know.
He's a bad friend.
I don't know.
He's a bad friend.
I don't know what's happened to you, Seamus. I don't know.
He got famous, became a bad friend.
It was a month ago.
I hate when I
said,
find a
"Dear
month-old
Seamus,"
text and I respond to it. I'm like, this doesn't look good.
Unfortunately,
I said, dear Seamus, my best friend, you are the greatest cartoonist, and your comedy is so great. And he ignored me.
That's
He's a bad person.
That was a Donald Trump kind of compliment, too. Just saying.
Oh, Trump is so good when he roasted Bill Barr. You remember that post he made where he was like, I called him fat, lethargic, and incompetent, but because he endorsed me, I'll remove lethargic from that statement. Jeez, he's good.
I liked when they accused him of sleeping in trial, and he's like, I was just resting my beautiful blue eyes.
My beautiful blue. Lunar Bow says, can you talk about the Charlemagne the God slideshow titled Things You Need to Know Before You Vote? I see so many of my friends posting it like I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone. I have no idea what that is. Never heard of it.
I'll have to tap in our hip-hop correspondent, Serge.
Hal Gailey says, I trust Harris Waltz with power less than I trust a fart in an airplane with no toilets after a week in India eating street food and drinking the water.
It's dangerous.
Specific.
Jeez. Yeah, that was a little much, man. All right, let's go. Relentless Hemi says, try the new Timcast Heavy Flow tampons. Shout out to
Not
Tim
going to
Waltz.
catch. It's not going to catch.
Yeah.
You know what catches is I pissed off an awful lot of military veterans.
A Waltz.
Yeah, his story
Tim
about
A Waltz.
That's not a bad one.
I didn't come up with that. That's what people have been saying.
Yeah. That's just the fact that the number of people that I've seen that have been trending saying, here's me not neglecting my duty.
Yep.
This is me. And it's a bunch of people on deployments. I think that's powerful. I think it's strong. The fact that he was going after guns saying, guns I used while I was in war. It's like, bro, come on.
All right. MF Damien says, I got a pretty accurate AI-generated real-time summary of the live chat when I opened the stream. When did this transcription nightmare start? What do you mean real-time summary of the live chat? I don't know what that means.
That sounds wild and also horrifying.
I don't know how you summarize a live chat. It's just people saying random things. Paul Tascalo says, if Kamala has a plan to fix inflation, why doesn't she just tell Joe about it so they can fix it now? That's actually, I tweeted that because there's this clip going viral. Let me pull this up. She's basically just saying, suffer, ha, 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 ha.
She said something to the effect of like, in my first days in office. And it's like, dude, you're already in office. You're already there.
Prices for everyday things like groceries are still too high. You know it and I know it. When I am president, it will be a day one priority to fight to bring down prices. So she's basically saying, she may as well have said, I could fix all your problems right now, but I'm not gonna unless you vote for me. It's like, oh, that sucks.
And
you could do it now, but you won't.
And they're still going for it. And I don't think she can do it. So there's that.
Yep. Titan Soap says, as an actual combat veteran, I really hope the Trump campaign hammers Tampon Tim with stolen valor. Yep. The VP debate will be interesting, Semper Fi. Yeah, I think they should call for him to resign. I said I thought Trump's press conference should have been to state that Tim Waltz's statements about serving in war are shockingly offensive to veterans in this country. And for this reason, I am calling on him to resign from this position. This is not a position he should have. Resign as governor, blah, blah, blah.
Vance would be a good guy to hammer him on that because I don't think he was like a correspondent or something. He was in a combat zone. I don't think he saw combat, but Waltz wasn't even close to it. So we'll see if we get those scheduled too, even the VP debates.
Nicolas Maduro says X is about to be banned.
He did ban it. For 10 days.
Oh, in Venezuela?
Yeah.
Just for 10 days? That's like...
Why not a cool fortnight? What's going on here?
Yeah, right.
How'd you come up with
banning
10
your app
days?
for 10 days.
It's 10 business days, so it actually is a fortnight.
It's like a timeout.
That's what it should be. Yeah, you're in timeout.
Lurch685 says, I'm a private security professional of 20 years. Totally inside job, not incompetence. I'm so sick of this default excuse. I agree.
The problem is if you're a private security contractor, you are held to a competency standard that the government is not. So
Yeah, a fair market value standard, too.
right.
Are you good at your job or
I'm
not?
just saying, it's tough. It's tough to see that.
Darius Lipsy says, Timcast is full of coincidence theorist. Is full on coincidence theorist?
I like full of, and I like coincidence theorists. I can get behind that.
So coincidence theorist is a reference to people who think it was all an accident and it's all incompetence.
I like that there's a term for it.
Right. And then conspiracy theorists that you think there was coordination at some level.
Yeah, I think it's
there's
got to be both, to be fair. It's probably a percentage of both. The question is how much of it, if you fail, here's the thing. If you prepare yourself, you tend to get more lucky and do things better. If you don't prepare, you tend to get more unlucky. So those things can overlap. The question is what percentage of it was.
Let me put it this way. If I walk into my living room and my window is shattered and there's a rock on the ground, I'm not going to be like, ugh. You know, someone accidentally threw a rock through my window. The security guards that we had here must have made a mistake. I might be like, someone intentionally threw a rock through my window. How did this happen? Like, I'm not going to assume there's an accident. Like, somebody must have accidentally was playing catch with a rock and then it went through the window. Only explanation.
You never lived next to me when I was a kid.
I mean, maybe if I lived next to a kid, but
yeah, that's right.
I'm not going to assume that a rock was rolling on the ground and the wind whipped it in the air. And I'm going to assume someone intentionally threw a rock through my window.
And if you're a coincidence theorist, as I am, I've mentioned this a few times on shows prior, but one of the most unnerving things about this is if you do believe it was just one motivated, crazy 20-year-old, relatively young shooter, that's to say that many political people are vulnerable because most senators congressmen don't have Secret Service. Nobody has as good a security as Donald Trump does, besides like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. So what does that mean for them?
It seems like everybody does, actually.
So what does that mean for them if a motivated young person wanted to...
The veil of civility is paper thin.
What would you do if you hired a plumber to come and fix your plumbing, and then during the process by which they're in your kitchen and your bathroom, you hear one guy go, ah, and then black sludge is spraying all over the place, and they go, we didn't do it. It was a coincidence.
Then you hired a government plumber. That's how that works.
You'd be like, dude.
That person goes back and writes it up and gets a promotion.
I'm pretty sure you did it.
This needs to be thoroughly investigated. So I'm not like excusing
and not by the people that are doing it right now. Let me just throw that out there. It's because they're not accountable. I would have loved to see the state police take it. I understand that there's a federal nexus simply because it was a federal protectee. The state police should be doing a full collab job. At least the state police are going to answer to some people in their state. Like, I'd like to see the PA.
Many more resignations. We only saw Sheetal, resign, head of Secret Service, I believe it was.
And very reluctantly at that.
Kind of pressured into it. And from it seemed like from Republican senators and stuff, when she was at the RNC, she was getting a lot.
Not to say it really flippantly, but while the FBI was letting somebody in and tracking a guy with 24-hour surveillance, do you have any idea how many people you have to wrap up to follow some Pakistani dude 24/7? You're talking about 3 shifts of surveillance agents. That's a minimum of like 6 to 8 per shift. That's just the surveillance end of it. Well, then you have analysts, then you have people that are doing all the exploitation, then you've got the case agents and anybody else that's doing the undercover operation. There's a lot of people. And in the meantime, the actual guy that took an actual shot at the actual, former president standing up there on a, giving a speech, that actually happened while the FBI was running around after the person that they created. That's the thing that bothers me so much. The opportunity cost continues to be the biggest question. What are your resources? They're finite, and you're using them to bring and import your own fake terrorists in so you can have a win the day before someone actually pulls off the legit terrorism.
But I think you made a really important point. We don't know how many of these instances where the FBI, we know they stage these hoax terror attacks so they can take them down and claim they did heroic work. How often do they try to convince a guy to do something, and then he cuts off contact and then goes and does it? And then they're like, oh, crap.
It's going to be stuck in a source room, and it's going to be hidden for 25 to 50 years under the human category. You will not find out the name of those things. And Congress doesn't have visibility to it, and I'm not confident the Inspector General does either.
What if that was the Vegas thing?
If it was an FBI CH. Here's the other problem. We focus in on the FBI because they're the one that's the most prominent, but the most scary animal that's out there is under DHS. They have absolutely no dialogue, which is the thing that I always harp on. It's really technical for people, but the FBI has a playbook. There are rules. It's not Vietnam. Like I feel like I'm Walter from Big Lebowski, but there are rules that the FBI falls under. They can break those rules, and they do sometimes, and they shouldn't, and they should be held accountable. DHS doesn't even have a rule book, so they don't even have to worry about ignoring it. And the scariest thing, Tim, that most people don't realize is that they bring DHS, like HSI agents and ICE and other stuff, they bring them onto FBI task force so that the HSI agent can do the thing that the FBI is not allowed to do because the FBI has rules. And those people don't lose their authorities when they join a task force. So some of this stuff is really wild. Who knows who the DHS guys are recruiting and what kind of ops they're incentivized to, because I don't know what their metrics look like. I don't know what their stats are. And they always seem to have a really cush job. They didn't seem to have to report to anybody. They'd come to our office for a couple of days. They'd go to their office for a couple of days. They'd go hang out in the desert for a couple of days. I don't know. They had a very different animal. So a lot of people are not paying attention to that. The fact that DHS is 10x the size of the FBI. It's a significantly bigger and probably a more threatening animal, especially for all the people that follow intel stuff.
All right, Daniel Karimian says, I fully support changing the show's name to Dancast.
Just temporarily while we wait out this Tim Wall storm.
Debcast.
Let's go. What have we here?
Yeah.
Josh Judge says, U.S. Army infantry here. On a handgun, the recoil force of the slide isn't that powerful. You can hold the slide stationary when firing. It can be a strategy to get the gun out of the fight because the next round won't chamber. Oh, well, how about that?
Unless it's small, weak female hands, then it's going to hurt.
Yeah, I figured you're going to get some pain there.
But I agree with him. Fundamentally, I agree with him.
Richard Devine says, an officer in Iraq at the clearing barrel wondering why rounds keep coming out of his pistol when charged, knew a soldier was mentally effed up from Iraq 09, was in the Fort Hood shooting, had to go back to Iraq. They need numbers. Wow. Yeah. Yoshiaki Koga says, Secret Service has recent history of incompetence. 2 attempts on Obama, 1 Bush, a former head of SS, resigned over the attempt on Obama. Look up real-life lore video on the topic. Interesting.
Or the Joe Rogan stand-up routine where he talked about the female that got punched out on the White House lawn.
Right. She jumped over the fence or whatever?
No, it was a guy that jumped over the fence, but it was like a woman standing post like at the front door. And
they just hit her?
That's Rogan's whole point. He's like, dude, guys, diversity, but like not that diversity. Like not a single lady standing in front of the front door.
Or firefighters. Or police.
You know.
Sure. Justin Newcomb says, PSA, if you're worried about election interference and voter fraud, do your civic duty as an American and sign up to work at the polls. Don't peek through a poll station window to verify integrity. Be a volunteer this year. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. All right. What have we here? Stoned Mason says, good evening, Tim and crew. An old man taught me the secret to a happy life some years back, and it was quite simple. Oh, okay. Is that a crypto thing you're promoting? Well, I won't read that. All right. Or is he saying buy rum? Well, I'll leave it at that. But I don't drink alcohol, so.
It might be a new token or alcohol rum.
Yeah. All right. Fleen Toke says, just tried to give the IRS some money that they say I owe. The website is partially down due to an outage. Don't know what that means, but just wanted to throw that out.
I think you should not have to pay it anymore. The website's down. They clearly don't want it that badly.
It's called a good faith effort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we
I'm
write
kidding.
it off
That's
on that?
bad financial and
don't do
legal
that.
advice, but.
Polly Puree says, Tim, I wish you would make a bottled mocha frappuccino like Starbucks with less sugar. I would buy it. Oh, dude. I would too. That's what I can't stand about these products. They dump sugar in them.
Yeah, they're crazy.
It's like, hey, the liquid deaths that we have here, I think they have like between 5 and 7 grams of sugar, and they're great. I don't need 30 to 60 grams of sugar in my drink. I'm not crazy. People do, I guess.
Young people do.
I don't know, man.
At some point, you age out of being able to handle that much sugar.
I think sugar's just kind of addictive. Like you get used to how sweet something is, and so then you want more and more of it.
Yeah, hyper palatability kind of thing.
Yeah. Like, did you ever, if you like mix sweets, like if you drink Coke and then eat ice cream, the ice cream doesn't taste sweet at all because you've already overloaded your taste buds?
I did not have that experience last night, but I still
You were drinking Coke and eating ice cream?
Yeah, I'm
a
grown up that eats like a child.
If you eat something super sweet, then eat something that's slightly less sweet, it tastes less sweet because your body,
prioritizes.
Well, it's just that you get adapted.
And there's only so much I can take anymore. I used to be the guy that like I could eat like a whole chocolate cake and it's game over. And now like I eat one and I'm like, I probably should.
It's the marginal utility for sugar. So the more sugar.
I think it's called my 40s. I just
I've never liked cake.
It's like a confession.
Yeah, I'd rather have ice cream. Cake it's good.
How do you feel about private property ownership?
It's great.
Okay, good. So not a commie, just don't like cake.
Yeah, cake is okay, but
it is one of the tests. Just
like
saying.
I'll put it this way: I would rather have lasagna. You know what I mean?
Good lasagna is pretty good.
Right. So cake is just it's a sweet treat. That's fine.
What if it has
But, like,
frosting?
a lobster risotto.
Yeah.
I have always preferred like a bowl of lobster bisque over like a slice of cake. I like savory.
Cake's an
more.
overrated dessert. It doesn't.
I agree.
It's filled
What about
with
like a creme brulee?
Okay, what about
Yeah.
what about
Yeah,
like
that's better.
That's much better.
what about
Yeah,
like a
good
bag
fats in
of
it.
chips? Would you rather have a bag of chips than a slice of cake?
Is there dip?
Sure. Yeah.
Yes.
What kind of chips?
Tortilla chips with guacamole over cake any day.
I just think some people are prone. They like salt versus they like sugar, which seems natural, right?
Last one. How do you feel about banana pudding with Nilla wafers? I'm a
pass.
sucker
Hard
for.
pass.
Are you-
Oh, great.
Pass? No,
Oh,
I
yeah.
I'm gonna
love
move
that.
to the
Fantastic.
south. Isn't that like a
Like, way
classic
better than
southern
cake.
thing?
Yeah, no, it's just more flavor. I'm also a sucker for bananas.
someone-
Nilla
I don't like the
wafers.
banana thing.
If someone offered me rice pudding or cake, I take rice pudding. Cake is okay. I just
No, it's too
Red
much like clumpy, bready, nothing, flavorless, nothing. And the icing's always like, I like ice cream cake, Carvel ice cream cakes.
Sure.
Those are-
Yeah.
Iconic.
it's okay, but the
I
cake
could
is
change your
afterthought.
mind, but you need homemade frostings. You can't have the garbage that comes out of the can.
Good chocolate chip cookies or oatmeal chocolate chip cookies that are made with a little too much butter, so they get nice and little crispy.
Yeah.
Oatmeal raisin is underrated, frankly.
Nah, raisins
is really
you
devolved.
Get raisins out of there.
I'll do
You bring raisins to dessert, and you're getting thrown out.
Oh, the raisin's like a nice cope that makes me feel nice about myself. Like, oh no, they're raisins.
It's
in it.
healthy. It's healthy.
I would rather have a
Strange argument.
bowl of oatmeal with some cream than cake.
Totally unrelated to any of those things, but I saw a lady the other day who was complaining that people have basically pickled all the things you can pickle. How come they haven't pickled cucumbers yet?
Oh no.
And I went
Oh,
like,
no.
those people can vote. That's the thing that I thought about. I was like, that lady, that's a Kamala voter right there.
I would rather eat a bowl of spaghetti than cake.
And cake. Yeah, cake's just terrible.
I don't know. It's okay.
So Tim's birthday, no birthday cake.
Savory treats only.
Or lasagna or other pastas.
No, you're like anti-carb though, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna probably have just like a bunch of chicken wings.
I'll get
Pollo asada.
I'll get the ice
or
cream cake.
whatever.
I'll get that for your birthday.
That's what I had tableside guacamole today, and chicken fajitas. And I always, no cilantro allowed in my guacamole.
Can I throw my idea on how to fix some of these problems that we've had?
Which
I was talking to the driver about it. No, this is just the guacamole thing reminded me. You've been to London, yes?
Yeah.
What's the one thing about the food that you remember?
They have cheese onion sandwiches.
Ew.
Generally not great food and
Yeah.
terrible Mexican food.
Hey, the British are doing their best. They've
here's the
contributed
deal.
a lot to
I
world
love
history.
Irish breakfast.
I just
Amazing.
I had this guy.
Beans,
I lived
blood pudding, tomato,
Can't do it.
mushrooms.
I had a guy that I was like flatmates with when I was in college, and his name was Andy Buttons, which is a great name for a guy from Cornwall. And he would always tell me, I'm like, what is this, blood pudding or black pudding? And he was like, yeah, mate, it's like this congealed blood. And I'm like, pass after all of that. Like I'm
So
done with
good.
it. So here's the thing. We need cultural enrichment according to the political left. They've told us this. That's why we have to leave the border open. I would propose that we start a nonprofit where we get cruise ships and they start making treks from the original homeland in Britain down to, let's say, Galveston, Texas. And we start
Your original
swapping.
homeland in Britain. You're British.
Well, I'm talking about the country here. This
Okay.
country has a British root, does it not? We have
Yes,
British
it
common law.
100%
I don't know.
does.
I don't know if I'd ever
apply
call
to
them
you.
the homeland.
I'm just
though.
telling
Where do
you
you
that
think
we have
our
a strong.
shepherds came from?
Elad's right. It's motherland.
Okay, motherland, call it what you like. What I want to see is I want to see the cultural enrichment where we trade some of these people coming in off the southern border, cruise ships full of them, for Brits that are sick of being censored on social media and that are having a hard time with some of the bad
You
ideas.
want to surrender the Britain?
I want to bring
You
the
don't wanna
Brits here and
surrender
put them
them?
through a Texas indoctrination camp. We make them wear red coats. They have to go out and shoot machine guns that are suppressed at Tannerite targets until they raise the Gadsden flag, and then we let them loose, and maybe we let them vote too. Like, let's just bring them in. Let's Americanize these people. Let's do a one-to-one swap.
I disagree.
Like
I disagree.
Ecuadorians.
It's not a lot
No,
about
no.
Don't
I have
abandon
thought about
Europe.
this, yeah.
Yeah.
Nope. It's
On
wrong.
cruise ships.
Wrong. Excuse me. Wrong. No. What we do is
Very Trumpian.
when
best Trump.
when the people cross the border on the south, if they're criminals, they got to go back. But if they're not criminals, and I mean like if they're criminals before crossing the border, if the only crime they committed was crossing the border, then they got to put on the coats. Then they got to go to the shooting range with the Tannerite and all that stuff. And in exchange, the communist leftists get sent to Ecuador.
We're going to export people to Ecuador too.
Hey, look, these.
I think we should
Venezuela-
export people to England as well. Like, let's
No.
do the cruise ship thing. It's fun.
I'm saying
It's an NGO. We need
the
to have
woke
like a
left,
boat.
Venezuela
We need a
awaits. The communist socialists in this country, Venezuela is right there, and
their utopia.
Make Venezuela great again. All you got to do is take all these lefties, and I will pay to help them move to Venezuela.
How many are you willing to spot?
It depends on the cost of moving to Venezuela. I can't imagine it'd be too expensive.
It's got to be.
Maybe
you're going to need a boat. Let's just be
Maduro
real.
may want some college-educated people in his country. He may subsidize it,
Or he might kill them all off. That's also possible too.
Nah, Maduro, he's not going to do that. He's going to just force them to do work they might not want to do. You know what I mean?
For that,
I'd be down to make the UK 4 new states if need be.
you want to annex the entire UK?
Yeah, just
I
4 new
don't.
states.
Not until they deal with their mass
What
illegal
would happen
immigration
with Ireland
problem.
and Northern Ireland? Northern Ireland is a U.S. state, and Ireland.
Yeah,
is-
we'll just
have a meme
separate them,
that's
make
sitting
them
on here.
states, get over it. Like
I have a meme that somebody sent me, and it's a MAGA guy, and it's like a IRA guy, and he's wearing the beret, and he has like an RPG on his back, and he goes, the MAGA guy goes, I got jailed for walking around in the Capitol on January 6th, and the IRA guy goes, he was like, LOL, you got into the Capitol and you didn't blow it up.
They would never respect our culture.
They took it so much harder over there. We have to agree that the 80s were harder in every way.
I was hoping with Brexit, things were angling. They're leaving
Negative.
the EU. They're coming closer to us.
got
They're an
softer.
island. They're not continentally attached. And
They need to be annexed
down
by
the
force if
line,
they're gonna
down the line, once we're annexing parts of Canada, northern Mexico, when we have to annex, unfortunately, when we have to deal with the cartels, and then we'll bring the UK into the fold as well.
So my wife,
All of Hannah Claire's ancestors, so all of the countries where Hannah Claire's were
Look,
from.
I'm happy. I love the relationship between England and the U.S. when both countries are functional. But
Would you like it better if
neither
we
one
just
is
conquered
doing
it?
that well.
should we just?
I think actually America does a bad job of ignoring their historic ties to Europe. But the biggest issue is before we annex anybody, let us remove the mass immigration, the mass populations of illegal immigrants who have arrived in them. Because I don't want to annex something and then have to just compound our current illegal immigration problem.
Inshallah, Trump will handle that if elected again in 2024. I think he said he was going to do mass deportations
I'd sign up for that.
We got a tornado watch going on right now.
in West Virginia.
Do I live in the studio now? I'm not going to be able to get home?
That's it. You're here.
Oh, man.
But
in.
those only watches. We have a flood warning happening right now. Let's see.
And this is from the tropical
Until
storm
midnight.
that originally hit North Carolina, I believe, and it actually forced Kamala Harris to postpone a rally I believe she was supposed to have there earlier today.
Wow, look at you.
good tie-in.
Everything back into
That
politics.
That was well done. That was well done.
Reflexive.
Everybody was impressed.
Yeah.
So do you think people are getting political fatigue a lot? Because you're on the ground so much.
Oh no, we're just getting back into the fold again. We're
Gross.
we're at the
that-
final sprint of the last 100 days. It's been super exciting. Happy to see the rallies kick up again. And these are big rallies. These aren't just like Congress members and like senators having rallies. These are presidential candidates having rallies, and they're introduced by the congressmen and senators. It's a very exciting time.
What do you think about Gwen Walls shaking
wife.
hands with Tim on the stage before hugging him? Have you ever seen a husband and wife shake hands? I haven't
Super
seen
awkward.
that much. But
Yeah, especially with Kamala kissing Doug Emhoff like right behind them while they were shaking.
I didn't realize how effeminate Doug Emhoff was when I heard him do that fake phone
didn't?
call that they did. I just
This man willingly got called the second husband for 3.5
I understand
years.
that part. Like I get like
And
that
you
there's
didn't
a
think he was effeminate?
posture person, but I'd never actually like listened to him speak and been like, oh my, like that is a very weak constitution that he has presented.
I gotta read this one. This is from Barrett1313. He says pie, apple, pecan, etc. Pie is based. All pies are great. Don't care what they are. If it is a banana cream pie, sure, I'd prefer an apple pie, but pie is great. Cake, boring.
Pie feels inherently American. I don't know why I feel that way.
It's superior
but
dessert.
It makes it when
about
I
a
think
galette?
of pie, I think of it
What?
like
A
on a
galette.
shelf
What's that?
next to an American flag.
Galette is like an
off.
open-faced pie. So the crust only covers probably like a third on the outer rim.
If it's a
open-faced.
cousin of pie, then it's good.
Yeah, it's clearly a cousin.
Cake, boring.
Maybe a even closer relative than cousin.
Flourless chocolate cake, which is basically fudge, it's okay. I'd prefer that.
Fudge is legit.
If you had like a flourless chocolate lava cake, that's not even cake. That's something else. That's like a fudgy explosion. I love it.
If that happens, you're at Chili's.
Where did I get one of those last? I don't remember. Bricks in Martinsburg, do they have that?
Yeah,
They
theirs is
do.
really good.
My buddy tried to bring something up called the Chili's Challenge. He would call girls up that he was friends with and invite them to lunch, and then they'd be like, "Where do you want to go?" And he'd be like, "I don't know. Where do you want to go?" And they'd be like, "I don't know." And he'd be like, "How about Chili's?" And he would always like offer Chili's, and then they would be really mad about it and insulted. Like for some reason, women are really angry about going to Chili's, and then he would always do like this half-ass recovery. He's like, they have like pretty good service, and the food's always like pretty normal, and they'd be like, "I'm not interested. I'm not going there." He would call like one person a week and try to make this. You can't make Chili's happen apparently with.
Really?
I don't want to go to Chili's.
I'll take my wife to Chili's in a heartbeat. I don't
Would
care.
you rather go to Chili's or Applebee's?
Chili's.
See?
Oh, Applebee's.
100 times out of 100.
Applebee's.
But I used to work at Chili's. I worked at multiple Chili's.
So you're brainwashed. You don't count.
Clearly. I worked at the original Chili's in North Dallas and in Texas, and then I also worked at the highest volume Chili's at the time in Oklahoma City.
Wow.
I got some Chili's cred. So, just saying.
Are they going to sponsor your show?
He's very chill.
Absolutely not. No, it's Brinker International.
Ruby
They're woke
Tuesday?
as all get out. Like, they're that.
Ruby Tuesday's a salad bar, don't they?
Yeah, I think they do.
They win.
I got kicked out of a Ruby
does
Tuesdays because I
TGI
wouldn't wear a
Fridays
mask with my girls.
Oh, then no. There's a restaurant.
Yeah.
There's a restaurant in Martinsburg that has a nacho bar.
Nacho bar is a good idea.
No, but I
They
Yeah.
have that
know
at
this
Chewy's.
now.
They always
Yeah.
have that at Chewy's.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Which is,
yeah,
which is an
Chewy's
Austin original, but
it's
now they have them in
Texas
Virginia,
stuff.
so you can find them up here.
Okay.
Chewy's are, it's,
There's one in Woodbridge for sure.
We were looking for a restaurant, and then someone recommended this restaurant in Martinsburg. I forgot what it's called, but they were like, they have a nacho bar. So you go, and they say nacho bar is just nacho bar. You do whatever you want, and there's chips, and there's all this.
You're like, whose bar is this? You're like, I don't know. It's not your
oh, it was
bar.
nuts. I just took the whole thing of sour
Such a
cream and just
dad
dumped it on
over
the
there.
plate.
I am a dad. I got 4 kids.
These restaurants sound nice, but Lebanese and Palestinian restaurants are far superior.
okay, Brooklyn, just calm down.
Is it Palestinian?
Yeah, Lebanese and Palestinian food.
Where's Palestinian food?
It's like Lebanese food. It's just
Oh,
like
okay.
Middle Eastern.
I do like
food.
Lebanese.
A little bit more terroristic. And
A little bit. I think their falafel is shaped a little differently.
Huh.
it's a little
You
bit
ever
more.
have Turkish food?
Like, isn't it just different kebabs?
No, they have this. They have a
I don't
dessert.
know.
This is arguing.
Is that
for position.
offensive? Sir,
They
just
have a
enjoying
dessert
too
that
much.
looks like vanilla pudding, but it's actually made of pulled chicken.
I don't want that.
So it's delicious.
I believe
and
you,
it's
but I
it's
don't want
crazy. So I went in and I was like, oh, what's this? And they're like, it's a dessert, and I got it. And I'm like, this is great. It's like cinnamon vanilla pudding. And my friend, Turkish guy's like, it's chicken. And I was like, haha. He's like, no, it's chicken. And then he like looked it up and he explained it to me. And he's like, you pull the chicken and then you mix it with something. I was like, well, it's delicious, so I'll eat it. And then they have something that they call the Iskander. And it's because it's named after Alexander the Great. This is what he told me. And he said that it's because his name was Alexander, and they thought Al is the, so they thought it was the Alexander. So they made a food called the Iskander.
I'm
Yeah.
for it. I'm for
Great
weird
food.
names.
A lot of
This was
kebabs.
in Turkey.
Islak Burger in Taksim Square. If you're ever in Taksim, because I don't know who would want to be there right now, but the glorious after-hours bar food is called the Wet Hamburger, the Islak Burger. And it is like a lamb burger and a bun they dip in this oily sauce and then put under a heat lamp. And it's basically people who are getting out of the bars and drunk and want food. It's like $1, and then you get this. It's so good. It's a soggy, wet burger. Anyway, we're going to wrap it up there. My friends, smash the like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Head over to timcast.com. That members-only show is coming up, but you got to click join us to become a member to watch the members-only call-in show. Not so family-friendly, but always fun. You can follow the show at Timcast IRL, but follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast, and share the show with your friends. Smash that like button. Kyle, do you want to shout anything out?
Yeah, well, first of all, say hey to my friend David, who is one of your biggest fans, and he got really excited. He saw my face on, so what's up, David? Also, you guys, if you want to follow me, you can do it at Kyle Seraphin on X, on True Social, and KyleSeraphin.com if you want to find the podcast.
My name's Elad Eliyahu. I'm a field reporter here at Timcast News. If you want to check out our work, it's Timcast News on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to DM me and complain about my takes, you could do that at my personal Instagram, Barely Informed with Elad.
See, his name represents exactly what the criticisms are.
Yeah, there you go, guys. So
Wow, zing. Yeah, guys, thanks for joining us for what I think was mostly a food review tonight. That was pretty good. I'm Hannah Claire Brimlow. I'm a writer for SCNR.com at Scanner News. You can follow our work, like Elad said, at Timcast News on the internet. If you want to follow me personally, I'm HannahClaire.B on Instagram. I'm HannahClaireB on Twitter. I don't know if I'll read any hate that you send me, but maybe. Thanks for everything you guys do. Have a good night.
We will see you all over at timcast.com in about a minute. Thanks for hanging out.